Welcome back to part two of disturbing Disney movies. Now we are on a descent going straight to HE double hockey sticks with Walt Disney. We are on a um, theme park ride with these four movies. We're going to do Haunted Mansion, The Princess and the Frog, The Devil and Max Devlin, and Monsters, Inc. So last week we left off at the House of Blues. You remember that?
I do. It's kind of like when you're saying that intro, it's like we're going on our own Mr. Toad wild ride right now.
Exactly.
Double hockey sticks. I
And
do. We're talking about House of Blues and the scary dirt they brought in.
they called it the Mississippi Mud Ritual, where they
Yeah.
bring the mud from so this is interesting. I wrote in my second book about 10 years ago, monarchs, zombies, and rock and roll will blow your mind and rock your body thetans.
Ooh.
Body thetans, do you know what those are?
Yes,
From
yes.
Scientology. So I was connecting devil worship, rock and roll, Scientology, and voodoo. And I had a voodoo era, like not that I was doing it, but I was reading lots of books and studying it because it was really fascinating how uh ordered it all is. I mean, it's not just cutting off chickens' heads and dancing around, it's very elaborate, right?
Really. Yeah.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
They have a whole pantheon, they have a whole cosmology, they have a whole lore about the serpent and the rainbow. Uh, yeah, so Robert Johnson sold his soul, it says, at the Highway 61 and 49 in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And he is the father of rock and roll, right?
Yep.
And that's where
Yeah.
you get the whole trope of selling your soul to the devil, which,
We're gonna cover that today.
yes, in Devil and Max Devlin. So I love it when a
But also
show
Princess
comes
also
together. But
excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was gonna say also in Princess and the Frog though, we got
mhm,
some soul selling. And really in like a lot of Disney movies, like yeah, Ariel
yeah,
selling her soul.
yeah.
Uh, um, I guess in a way, even Cinderella getting her little midnight romp. By extension, you can say Aladdin getting his genie powers, you know. But
Hmm.
anyway, go on, go on.
But yeah, I love it when a show comes together with I don't even try to connect all these things. They just do it on their own. So this is going to be really
Yeah.
good. I didn't know if you knew about like the voodoo coming from Africa and the New World, and it gets mixed together with Roman Catholicism, and they just attribute different voodoo gods to the saints of
Hmm.
Catholicism.
That's like the whole Santa Maria thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know like Santa Maria is
Santeria.
oh Santeria. I know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because Santa Maria is just Saint Mary, but
Right.
yeah. Is there any sort of Mary in voodoo though, who's like voodoo
Um,
Mary?
yeah, well, yes. I maybe that would be like Oshun or one of the big female goddesses. So there's a whole like you know how Egyptians have nine gods
Yeah.
and they're related and then they have children. The voodoo pantheon is like that too. And they also have like the good ones and the bad ones. And then there's also how voodoo dovetails into Gnosticism. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
that. The
I'm
Gnostic
thinking
Catholic Mass and the Voodoo workbook. I remember reading this old magic book a long
when
time
did
ago.
when did voodoo start? When did it start coming over here? Do you know? Like centuries
But
wise?
in the New World times, you know, Christopher Columbus and the slave trade and brought that.
So like maybe even before the founding of the country proper.
Oh yeah, so like okay, I guess there's two. Let me put my memory on. Dahomey and Benin, I think, are the two major centers, and it's called Yoruba. And so that came over with the slave to Haiti first, and then the Caribbean, and then like New Orleans and the South. Um, so that was the way that it got here,
Gotcha.
right? And the god of the crossroads, who is Papa Legba, and he's kind of like a gatekeeper, and he is connected to Freemasonry also. And I have a picture of
He
like
kind of looks like our Shadow Man from a movie tonight.
exactly. So he from the Princess Frog, he would be like a called a Bokor,
Hmm.
like a voodoo priest.
Okay.
Or you can also call him like a Hungan, or a Mambo is a female priest. And they
Hmm.
go through like purification rituals. If you want to become, like a voodoo priestess, you have to wear white for a whole year. You have to cover up all your mirrors. You have to do all of these um, rituals. And so the point of this is to become so powerful that you become possessed by the Loa, they call them, the voodoo spirits.
Mm-hmm. I
And
remember. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, just side reference to that, to the Loa. There's this comic book series back in the '90s called The Invisibles. It is
Uh-huh.
like super occult, esoteric, like if you could say superhero, quote unquote,
I read that.
comics. Yeah, you did. You read The Invisibles?
Is it
Oh
Grant
yeah,
Morrison?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah. So there's a whole I'm forgetting his character off the top of my head, but literally a voodoo guy who like covered as a rap artist.
Oh
And
yeah.
he had the power of the Loa and the scorpions to like do his invisible bidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is what's going on right in downtown Disney, um, in House of Blues. And that is a perfect segue into our first movie, which is The Haunted Mansion. And it's funny when they make movies out of rides, because some of them are really not good, but Pirates of the Caribbean was awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, have there been any other movie rides, or is this number two?
Well, I don't know. Dumbo was a movie or a ride first. Probably a movie. So
Yeah.
definitely Dumbo is a ride. Alice in Wonderland is a ride. What else?
Even if this is only the second one, you could say they're not two for two.
Right. um, Tomorrowland was a movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You could say Tomorrowland in a weird way because that was like a park way before it was a movie.
Yeah.
But they
So
do the Small World movie yet?
do they do what movie?
The Small World movie. I
Oh,
don't know if
ew. What would that even be like? I don't know.
it would be like just us all watching each other on YouTube all the time in our
Yeah,
small world.
exactly. Like a Black Mirror Small World.
Yeah.
So Haunted Mansion 2023, welcome to New Orleans,
First
right?
words of the movie. Yeah.
Yes. Uh, a
So
hotbed of voodoo.
I got a soft spot for New Orleans. I've not been, but I've always wanted to. And when I grew up as a kid, like New Orleans, Dixieland jazz, Christmas music, that was like it really just opened something in me. Like my love of jazz and New Orleans. Like I don't know, man. I just love the French Quarter, and I always wanted to visit. And yeah, so I confess, as silly as this movie was, I aesthetically enjoyed some of it. Some of it, you know.
But you've
But
never been?
no, no, just being all
Oh.
the way out here to California.
So I'm the same way as you. I love the aesthetic of it. I think it looks really fun. I love the jazz music. I've been there a couple of times, and God will not let me spend more than 24 hours in New
Yeah.
Orleans for whatever reason. Like, I really want to explore and see things, but we get there and then something happens and we have to go. Or one time we were there and there was a hurricane that we had to escape. And as they were closing off the freeways, we would have got flooded, but we kind of like floated out of there as the last people to get on the highway before they closed all the exits. Um, but it is a place with a very interesting feeling. Like we took a tour in one of the old graveyards,
Hmm.
because they don't bury their dead, they have to be above ground, so everybody's got like a little mausoleum, or they're stacked up in little we actually were going to see Nicolas Cage's tombstone that he bought already for himself. It
Really?
was like a white pyramid. Yeah. And they had what who was that voodoo queen?
Oh,
Marie Laveau.
oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
and her grave was there, and people still to this day put little gifts like coins or cigarettes or hair bows or whatever, like a little offering, and ask her for things. So I thought that was very interesting. But yeah,
Yeah,
voodoo, I mean,
offer up your best cigarette butt. Your great
they weren't
offering.
smoked, they were like whole. But this is what you do. Like, oh, so when the Loa comes and possesses the voodoo priest or priestess, then they take on the characteristics of that spirit, that god, right? And then the people are supposed to bring them things like they prefer their like brandy, or they have different requests, and you know who's there by what they want you to bring them. So
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. So welcome to New Orleans. It starts out with a couple, a meet cute, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it is
You
between,
got Ben and Alyssa.
yes.
And Alyssa translates in Greek to the end of madness.
Oh.
A plus Lyssa.
Uh-huh.
So she will end Ben's madness, or so we'll think.
Okay. Interesting. And he is an astrophysicist,
Right.
right?
Right.
And she is a ghost tour guide.
Yeah, and he just believes we're all dirt, quote unquote, from his dirt in the movie. We'll get to that. May I'm jumping ahead about 5 minutes though.
That's okay.
We learn quickly that she dies.
Yeah, she doesn't spend very much time in the movie. But
Haunting.
he says, I'm an astrophysicist. And she says, you mean rocket science? And he's like, oh, something like that. And he says, he's creating lenses. He's currently working on the formula to map dark matter.
Yeah, I thought spectral photography.
Yeah. And so he starts going on about quantum mechanics, and she says, you're trying to see the unseen. And I was like laughing at this like guy spitting dark matter game at the bar. Right? Like, how many times do you go and try and shut up a girl and like, I'm trying to study dark matter? But like, that's
Yeah,
not
she'll really find this attractive.
but
Clearly she did. Well, you know what I thought was really I thought it was a bold move in Disney 2023 is like basically it's like 2 minutes to New Year's and she's like trying to get a drink and he's like, here, you want mine? She's just like, sure, strange guy, I don't know. I'll drink your drink. I was
right.
like,
I thought that too. I was like, don't take that drink, girl. So now we are seeing a marriage between science and the paranormal.
right off the bat.
And right away, this reminded me of Angels and Demons. And I was like, is he talking about CERN? And later on in the movie, he does explicitly talk about CERN, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So here is a kids movie based on a theme park ride, just a haunted house ride, but we are going deep, deep into like cutting edge science. Uh-huh.
The quantum realm. We're going into the
quantum realm, dark matter, unseen things. And they start talking about cathode ray tubes. And I didn't know if you had seen in one of my books, I talk about, do I have it right here or not? Probably not, but the cathode ray TV tube was made by people in the Golden Dawn who were trying to see on the other side. They thought spirits could arrange the particles on the screen. And so a lot of these technologies, especially rocket science, which she mentions, is magicians or people with occult backgrounds trying to implement that as a technology, and that is their science, right?
Right. Well, think about how crazy the cathode ray and even earlier the radio was. Like I heard this thing where like when old timers, when the radio first came out, they literally were like, there's no way that you can hear things through a little box from all this far away, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the whole, I don't know. I don't really have a point other than the mind-bogglingness of the invisible and man's attempt at trying to get there through the science and sometimes achieving, frankly, you know, it's
And
allowing us to communicate right now.
who said that the science, what is it? Advanced
Like
technology is indistinguishable from magic. Who said that? Do you remember?
I think it was Iron Man. No, I don't know.
Was it Arthur C. Clarke or was it one of the other guys? Anyways.
Oh, it might have been Arthur C. Clarke.
Okay, yeah. So
I don't know.
They're saying advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's what we're talking about right now.
Right. And before we just like maybe launch into just go and beat their beat to the movie, I think maybe for me, kind of the one thing I want to not really like hit home, but from the sort of Christian perspective, is very much how like these movies, it's like they have such good intentions, kind of quote unquote, and we're gonna do all that great spiritual lifting, but it's this weird sort of quantum science spiritualism stuff, you know? And I
Hmm.
think for me, it's just more kind of like my kind of chicken little running around saying the sky is falling thing is kind of like, what are we as Christians to do with this sort of stuff? Like, are we just supposed to maybe really strengthen our kids in Christian stuff so that when they go see these movies, they can pinpoint how this isn't good for us, for lack of a better word? Or do we just kind of like let it all go and say it's all demonic and stupid and hell be damned, but you know, it's still making billions and billions of dollars, you know? Do we, yeah, I don't know. So just saying, it's like these movies are fascinating to me because I see them with a lot of, I see them as if like I'm a person who's just kind of a whatever Joe Blow, not really with a set belief system. And you think, oh, if I just work hard enough on my science camera, I'll bring my loved one back to life. Because remember, the whole point of him making the camera is to bring her back from the dead.
Hmm.
So it's like basically purporting like Frankensteinian Promethean values. If you really want to like chip away at all the surface stuff and get to the core themes, it's like super Promethean, you know? It's kind of just like it's not good.
Yeah, it's like phenomenal cosmic god powers that we're not ready for, kind of.
Right. And even if the movie isn't really hitting that theme really hard, like it's not a Frankenstein movie per se, the
Hmm.
mere fact that he has like his quantum camera, we just as an audience member supposed to go, oh, quantum camera, check. Ghost realm, check. Therefore, science will get us into ghost realm. Check, check. Moving on, you know, and it kind of
Yeah.
like opens up all these weird questions like, well, what is this spiritual world if there's angels and ghosts and demons, but there's no God and just kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like I know it's just a movie, they're not supposed to answer these things, but we as I think as discerning people, like, hey, let's just say at the very least, I don't need to make it so highfalutin. I just have fun trying to analyze these movies because they're so weirdly well, they're consistent within themselves, but they don't line up with our worldview, let's say.
Mm.
And so
Hmm.
in trying to find that duet between them, if any, you know.
Right. Well, that's why I think it's funny when people say, I follow the science or I believe in science. I'm like, all these scientists are into like woo-woo occult stuff, right?
Truly. Yeah. Yeah.
Paranormal and just stuff that is doesn't sound scientific.
Well, right. I mean, that's something I'm like in thank God the Lord gave me so much grace at the outset to just walk away so easily. But like in my long repentance from Jungian kind of stuff, like you realize it's not a far leap from scientific trying to be discerning and objective to just being totally ridiculous with the way that like for instance, like jumping ahead a little, but when I was trying to talk about to myself, try to figure out Princess and the Frog, I found like, man, this movie's kind of got a lot going on that I could watch and try to figure out, blah, 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 and kind of using all my like Jungian labels of like shadow and the anima and trying to like, you know, make it all work. And I just realized like it just kind of hit me like there's this whole on one camp esoteric speculation theory using our esoteric decoder ring where we have to like figure everything out. And then there's that which is revealed to us
Mm.
just
Hmm.
what it is, you know?
Hmm.
And like gospel has been revealed to us. Everything that we believe is like available from 8-year-olds to 88-year-olds. You know, there's a level of way this truth is revealed that everybody can understand. You can also go deeper. But with a lot of this other more occult stuff, you have to like you were saying about I'm trying to get this as the scientists being into all the occult. It's like they have to have all this jargon and labels and terms for everything that they're applying into the spiritual world, casting like a net upon it of terms and definitions. And it's just kind of like funny because I can interpret these movies sort of trying to use that, like, well, this symbolizes this and that symbolizes this. But on another level, it's like, dude, just don't mess with voodoo doctors. Like, don't go into ghost houses. You know, it's pretty
Don't try
straightforward.
and contact the dead. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, I was talking to my priest for alluding to kind of like trying to get some questions about ghosts and spirits and stuff, and he didn't say much other than yeah, yes, we believe in ghosts. Read about
Yeah.
read about Samuel and Saul and David and then that story, and it's kind of ambiguous, which he gave me an ambiguous answer on. But he definitely said, "Be careful conjuring dead loved ones. It's basically always gonna be demons if you go that route."
Right.
So yeah,
There was a
and this
story in South America about a group of girls who were playing with a Ouija board and they all end up in the hospital. It was pretty
how
recent,
recent was that? A while ago or
just within the last 2 months, I think.
wow? Because Ouija
Yeah.
boards have been around for quite a while.
Oh yeah. Um, so yes, this
So
is
sorry,
what
yeah,
we
go into it.
are, the subject matter that children are expected to be able to follow: CERN, quantum mechanics, dark matter, voodoo. Um, and the wife dies in the beginning of the movie. That always happens in a Disney movie. The matriarch has to pass away for
Because we got
some.
to go looking for our divine feminine somewhere
Mhm.
in the movie, right?
Right.
Sophia's got to get found.
Right. And there's a Sophia symbol later on in this movie, but so she was the one who believed in the paranormal. He was the one who was approaching it from the scientific standpoint. I believe in the material world and what I can prove, what I can see. That's why he needs a camera to prove that there's ghosts, right?
Right. He needs it further. He needs an extension of himself to buttress between him. He needs to outer himself so that he's not really him directly exposed to the spiritual world like she is. He needs his little, his extended eye, his eye to really see it. Because he can't
Mhm.
see. Wow, I'm kind of blown away by the interesting symbolism there. Like he can't see him with his own eyes, so he needs his like extended technical eye.
Right.
Otherwise, he's a non-believer. But
Uh-huh.
sorry, I had fun with that one.
Yeah, he can only see the spirit world through technology.
Technology,
Yeah.
which in a weird way is like, I hate to say it, that's like what we all do too. Like in a weird way, you and I are both disembodied to one another right now, talking over the, yeah, I don't even want to call them the airwaves because like, what is it?
Yeah.
A satellite's like literally
The
going up to,
interwebs, the
yeah,
ethernets, and the Wi-Fi.
yeah.
Yeah.
The invisible domain is connecting us.
So he has taken over um her job after she passed away. Now he's the ghost tour guide, but he's sucks at it because he is bitter
He's got
towards
no
the
heart.
world. Yeah.
He's got no heart in it. This is where he gives his line that we're all dirt.
Hmm.
What does he say? He says, "Ghosts don't exist. It's just dirt. We're all dirt." And he gets super aggro.
Yeah. We're all
See?
star stuff.
Right, because when you're star stuff, you become totally butthurt at the end of the day when love leaves you because you're not going to see them in heaven later.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
And he was tortured because the last thing he said to her was kind of cold.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're jumping ahead in the film, but
Yeah.
right, it was. What do you remember exactly what he said? Or
She asked him to come with her somewhere and he said, "No, I can't. I'm busy." And she ended up dying. So, but yeah, so he's got a lot going on and he is visited by Owen Wilson.
yeah, who we should we spill the beans now and say he's a priest but not priest?
Yeah, I thought this was pretty funny. He calls himself Father Kent,
Yeah.
right?
Which
Uh,
again, they're dissing on Roman Catholic stuff. We kind of Orthodox, we're sort of off the hook here
uh-huh.
in this movie because they're really just making fun of Catholics. Which I
Well,
don't mean that to, like good for them beating them up, just kind of like, man, that's what's going on. Poor Father Kent's gonna be the butt of so many jokes in this movie.
well, what they were saying, and this is what really drove the point home about angels and demons, because that was about the Vatican and CERN,
Yep.
right? Have you read Dan Brown novel?
I've seen no, actually I have read Angels and Demons. I didn't see yes, I saw that one and read it. That's the only one of them that I actually did read.
Hmm. So the that's about the search for antimatter also. And in this movie, I feel like Owen Wilson's character was kind of like saying that God's representative is ineffective and kind of shady.
Yeah, not only that, he refers to himself as Coach Kent at a certain point,
Uh-huh.
and just kind of saying like, yeah, I'm not even a priest here, because like this is what I was trying to say in my little rant earlier about how um these movies are interesting spiritual things because we as Orthodox Christians can either look at them and kind of do apologetics for them and stuff, or we could look at them and be like, if this was a pagan religion in the first century and we were Christians in the first century, this would be our rival religion for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on one level, what I noticed this movie doing, like super underhandedly or blatantly, was putting the psychic as more powerful than the priest. And like what I'm trying to say is, from an Orthodox perspective, if you were to watch this movie, it's like, well, obviously the priest would go in there, do the exorcism, stay there as many nights as need be, and all the ghosts would be gone because ghosts have no power over Jesus, you know? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like all the priest has to do is his priest stuff, and that place would be good to go. We wouldn't have a movie, because it'd be so boring on some level. Um, Not trying to say exorcisms are boring, but you know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah,
would be boring because the priest would win because
right.
Christ has already defeated the demons. So they make the priest like lower than the psychic, which again is kind of like saying magic is higher up than prayer,
Right.
materialism, which between you and like I know somebody can listen to this will be saying I'm making a leap saying a psychic is a materialist, but I think you know what I'm saying in terms of like psychics and mediums still sort of being in that same worldview as the modern world basically. It's just like science's spirituality is like mediumism on some level. They're
Yeah.
like two sides of the same coin. Yeah. So I'm saying this movie kind of in the end affirms that side, magic, Disney magic, more than Christian prayer. But what do we expect, right, Jamie? What should we expect?
Oh, yeah. I would expect nothing less than the just the spirit world triumphs over the spirit world in a different
Oh,
way.
and then two other comments on the priest, so then we can just move on.
Uh-huh.
I actually think it was kind of funny, but it's also kind of like these sad moments where he prays. He's like, I think we should say a prayer, and he's like, Oh God, give us a break,
Yeah.
But like on some level, he's saying, Lord have mercy, but on another level, he's just got no real faith kind of in what he was doing. And then at the end, when he basically praises or does a prayer something in the name of Kent rather than in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah. And so in a way, I feel like they're saying that um Christianity is a con, or priests are con men.
Because the priest yeah, not only are they the con man because he's such a jokester, but the priest calls the physicist. He's like, oh, I think this is a job for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So God needs help from science in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he did manage the main character, Ben, the black guy, he did manage to invent a camera to see the ghost particle, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And this is, I guess, a metaphor for the God particle, what they were looking for at CERN, because at that point they do say that he did work at CERN at one point.
Yeah, so it's funny. I remember years and years ago, the God particle being that whole thing they built CERN for, right?
Yeah,
To like smash the atom and try to find what happens when they do that.
dark matter. Well, what they said was they were trying to make baby big bangs to see what had happened at the beginning of the universe.
I'm pretty sure God built himself a laboratory at the beginning of the universe and
Yes,
smashed to create a Big
he
Bang.
built a giant particle collider, and he put a statue of Shiva out in front. That's true, actually, that there is a statue of Shiva out in front of CERN. And I remember when they did some kind of ceremonies at CERN also that were very pagan ritual looking, like the Olympics and the when they opened that tunnel. Remember the Gothard tunnel ceremonies? Did you ever see that?
No, what are
Oh,
those? What's
just look that up on your own time.
sure,
But
sure.
so when they do these things in Europe, they always have these very like Wicker Man, pagan,
Hmm.
Norse type plays and ceremonies that they're fun to decode. But so there's CERN, there's the Catholic Church, there's the God particle, they're talking about quantum lenses, and Ben has to go investigate the single mom Rosario Dawson's house because
Yeah,
she has moved into the haunted house, like the haunted house from Disneyland, right?
yeah, and I mean, it could spend like if we were just doing commentary, it's kind of like what in her right mind? I know she wants to do a bed and breakfast, but like, I mean, come on, dude, did you like Google Photos that place before you moved
Yeah,
in?
right. You must
It's
have
so
got that
scary.
a really good deal on that thing.
Yeah, really. Oh, I think she did say something like that, right? About on being
Oh,
on
okay.
Zillow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she invites him to investigate, and he doesn't believe her and he leaves. And that's when he realizes that he is still haunted from being at her house.
This was an interesting conceit. The ghosts leave the mansion to bring people back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like the hitchhiking, they're kind of like those hitchhiker ghosts from the
They
ride.
are exactly that. And that always creeped me out. Like every time I went on the Haunted Mansion ride and you go through the end of it and you see them sitting there with you in
Yeah.
the thing and they're
So
like, coming home with you. Ha ha ha.
you grew up in SoCal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Going to Disneyland. Yeah, that's what we
Mhm.
were saying before. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think it's like a SoCal thing, this Disney stuff. Cause like as I talk to people where I'm from now and like people that never grew up around SoCal in the Hollywood world, for lack of a better word, like they just don't seem to get it in the same way, you know, and Lord have mercy on them and God bless them. But I'm just kind of like, man, there's just almost something about like everybody's born in a certain time and place with things that affect them, you know, and being born in SoCal going to Disneyland really think it's done a number on my human psyche, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
definitely. Well, I mean, why do you think I have all these books and talk about Disney? I spent so much time there, as a tour guide, even just
Outside of the park.
well, you can roam around inside. You can do whatever you want while you're waiting for whatever group you brought to do what they're gonna do.
You were
But
like a Disney tour though? Like you did tour guides for
I didn't work for Disney, but Disneyland
right.
on my tour. So like you
Wow.
take them and get them in there and you give them their lunch ticket and then you pick them up at 6 and I had, all day to do what I want, but I have to stay in the park area. So I have
Yeah.
a lot of experience just hanging out at Disney, looking at things slowly, finding the secret corners and spots. So I spent a lot of time there, yeah.
Wow.
And I
Good to know.
always hated the hitchhiking ghosts. Like they gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, that's funny. Hey, speaking of heebie-jeebies, there are some scary moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Parents, definitely, I'd say PG-11 if you're bringing your kids in there. I mean, I
Oh,
don't know.
definitely.
There's some creepy ghosts.
And Jared Leto was the main arch demon, wasn't he? The bad
Yeah,
ghost.
he didn't really look like him though. He kind of just looked like CGI ghost face. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It was mostly CGI him. Okay, so they follow Ben home and he's got these like ghosts with they say they're like bed bugs, like you can't get rid of them, right?
Right.
And the house traps you there and so they have to go to the psychic, the medium, the she's not a voodoo priestess, but she's kind of in the same
She's
category.
like a yeah. She's in the category. She's just kind of like she's like TV to cinema. She's not as cool. Well, these days TV's better, but back in the day she would have been like a TV star instead of a movie star.
Right.
She's not that. She's like B ranking.
So they get her, and this is where the team starts to become effective. So they've got your defunct priest, or not even a priest.
Yeah. Which we don't know this till the very end of the movie, right?
Yeah.
We're like, whoa.
You're a single mom, your son with no father, your
It'll be important later on.
materialist. What?
That'll be important later on.
Mm-hmm.
Because well, anyways, we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, we have our astrophysicist materialist and then our history professor.
Oh,
And I think
Danny
that
DeVito, I forgot he was in that. Yeah.
yeah, we gotta have the facts.
And you're like, what's her name? Miss Cleo. Remember that? Call me now.
Oh yeah.
Psychic Miss Cleo. Yep. So Miss Cleo, I forgot her name, but I'm just gonna refer to her as Miss Cleo. Um, Now they're getting somewhere and they figure out that there had been a suicide in the mansion and 66 people died there. right? And it's interesting that they say this number 66
Hmm.
because this is the number of the dark side in the Kabbalah.
Really?
Yeah. So, like, you know how you have the tree of life, and then they have a shadow side of the tree of life. You should know this. You're all about shadow side.
I never got
I know,
into
I'm just
college.
kidding.
So I basically converted. I was saved before I had to ever get into that side of it.
Yeah, good. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so
No.
there's true life in the shadow side, and that's where the demons hang out. They're called
Yeah.
the Qliphoth, and their number is 66.
I think even, forgive me, nerds out there, but I think even in Star Wars world, 66 is like a bad number because
Yeah,
that's like,
because he
yeah,
said
yeah, yeah.
execute order 66, and then they all
That's it.
kill baby Jedi's.
That's it. That's yeah, right.
Because I used to
Except for
use
that
that too
one
as an
chick.
example. What?
Yeah, except for the one chick in the new show who apparently got sick. Yeah, we don't even need to go into
Yeah. So here
that.
they're throwing out Kabbalah numbers. I'm not a big numerology person, but I do know the big ones, 66, 666, 93, those type.
Well, it's funny, like I'm not really big into numerology either, but meaning something I know for a fact in numerology. I'm not trying to be like, dude, check this out. It means it's true. But in numerology, it's always about 10, right? Once you get to 10, everything starts over.
Hmm.
So it's either like if a digit is because I was thinking about this jumping ahead to Max Devlin because the motocross guy, his number is 19. And I was
Mm.
kind of like, what's up with 19? Is there anything there? And I'm just look, I don't want to say this is like my cool interpretation, send me a check, but saying, oh, this is literally what somebody with a base level numerology thing would say is they say, oh, 1 + 9, that's 10. 10 is the perfect number of alchemy. Therefore, motocross guy is somehow, the alchemist because he gets the devil powers
Oh,
and be the best motocross guy, you
yeah.
know? Just saying, yeah, I don't know much about numerology either, but there's some base things that are little things in the toolkit you should know about when you're
Yeah.
adding up digits. Yeah.
Definitely the big ones you should know because they do come up again and again. You should know. I mean, in reference to ghosts, like a movie about dead people and haunted things, and because they do say that those on the dark side of the tree of life are like shells, they call them, or ghosts.
Right. And
So
616 is also a 666. It's the same thing.
mhm.
And I can't go into all of it because I honestly I don't remember it all. But like in Greco-Roman Hebrew numerology, back in the day when they were passing around Revelation, 616 was basically equal to 666 as a thing as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you ever see that
So
one?
through the medium, Miss Cleo, they find out that there was some psychic activity going on in the days past. And that is what opened the floodgates to all of these ghosts being attracted to this house.
Yeah, well, and most importantly, I thought about that was that it's the frequency of him doing it. It was like, right? Remember, he did seances every day for a year. This is all in flashbacks we're getting, but
Mhm.
he was doing flashbacks. He was getting flashbacks for a year
Yeah.
of his ghost tripping, and that's what caused him all to break through. Is because he was what could be a metaphor? Anyways, he was rubbing down his sort of his buffer
Yes.
to make himself totally,
They were thinning the membrane between the worlds.
there you go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny you bring that up because remember earlier, Ghost Cleo lady, she talks about ghost winks, how they're like an interface between the dimensions, and it's got like the Venn diagram with
The
the
Vesica
little.
Pisces. Yeah, I wrote
Yes,
that down.
yes, nice. Yeah, I was gonna mention that too.
Yeah.
Another
So,
little Christian symbol in there, but not really.
uh-huh. Not only did they have that, um, she's explaining, she's trying to illustrate the realms of the living and the dead, and she puts the circles like here's the living, here's the dead, and here's us. We're like in the middle, right? And this
Right.
is an esoteric Gnostic symbol, the Vesica Pisces, which is like the portal to the material world because it's the female genital, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then
Hmm.
I noticed in the foyer, when you come into the very front door, you've got that circumpunct. Did you see that? That little, I mean, it's the Target logo.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
Yes. So I talk about this a lot in relation to like it's really important to the Illuminati because it's a symbol, it's a solar symbol in astrology.
Circumpunct,
Circumpunct. Yeah.
Punct.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Write down circumpunct because Dan Brown also wrote an entire novel about that and
Hmm.
Freemasonry. He called it the lost symbol.
Hmm.
So, yeah, basically the target logo is in astrology, it's a solar logo.
Yep.
In the Illuminati, it was a symbol of fire, and it is also a symbol of androgyny, with the point being the male and the circle being the female. It
And
means
quite
the
plainly,
Pythagorean monad. What?
it looks like an eyeball too on
Yeah,
some, you know.
yeah. And it's also like, the Pythagorean monad. So it's got a lot going on, right? It's not just the target. It's
Well,
very
that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying about speculative, esoteric decoder ring stuff we got to do versus revealed truth.
Mhm.
Like where it all in our symbolism is like, I mean, there's a lot of poetry about the cross being certain things, but on some level, it's like it doesn't warrant so many webs of associated names of what it might be, because every one of those is sort of like a hyperlink you would click and then find out way more and more and more and more and more.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just an interest. What I'm trying to, I guess, was kind of having this revelation the other day of kind of like, it's like we almost have these light switches in our head that we can switch between ways of seeing things. And when we see something like the circumpunct, and its sort of mysterious surface on some level, it warrants so many more dreamy daydream associations, you could say, in a way that like we don't really have a set definition of what it is, where there's a lot of other symbols, I'd say, frankly, in the Christian tradition that are so simple, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
even a 6-year-old understands them.
Mm.
It's just kind of like, wow, one brings me a lot more peace and clarity. The other one makes me confused and
Oh, yeah, good
insistent
point.
on trying
Because
to
you never
figure
get
out
to
what
the
it means.
bottom of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because it can also be a binary thing, like
Mm,
computer 1 and 0,
right.
right? Which also Kabbalah can be taught
Well, and
like
then you
that
can
too.
get into Taoism
Yeah.
being yin and yang.
Yeah. And the two pillars. Anyways.
Exactly. Here
Um,
we go.
so we've got all of these psychics and mediums in the haunted mansion. The Madame Leota was the one trapped in the crystal ball. That was the Jamie Lee Curtis character. So you've got the old medium and the new medium working
Yeah,
together.
yep. And not only that, the new medium. See, it's little stuff like this. Like I'm imagining I'm like an 8-year-old kid and I love Halloween, and then you watch this movie and you're like, oh, I want to do that, or I can't wait till I get old and I get to do that, or something. And so what she does is she like astral hops like into her. She lets herself be possessed
Yeah.
by Matt Leota.
Yeah.
And also earlier they call astral projection reverse seancing.
Yes.
Remember?
And remember, we talked about Mickey astral projecting in Fantasia.
Yes, that's right.
And now you have Miss Cleo astral projecting, and she finds out that the dude who originally owned the mansion had opened the floodgates to the ghost realm, and all of like hundreds of spirits came back, but not his dead wife. Because he just
Right.
wanted to talk to his wife, but he accidentally let in like all the other ghosts. And I was laughing because I'm like, what even zone is this? Like widow zone, you know?
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. You got to be careful when you're getting in the spirit world because you don't really know what you're calling upon. Like
Yes.
when we pray to Lord Jesus Christ and the saints and the Mother of God. But like in magic world, maybe I'll just show you it now. This is my picture.
Okay.
All right, so I'll get a little closer.
Uh-huh.
We have our magician.
Yes.
And he's in magic world, so he sends his will up and he gets whatever comes from the force and he's like surrounded in it. And the
Uh,
two are sort of linked, and in a way it looks like a good image because well, one, he's got his cool hat and pointy boots, so that looks kind of cool. But he it seems like a good thing because you have your source of life, whatever that may be, and you're linked up to it and you're getting it. But on the other hand, you don't really know what's going on with that. And I'll say a little more when we get to the voodoo stuff later, because I have some notes on magic versus prayer that will make it a little clearer.
okay.
Um, I'll just read them down. But so that makes kind of what this is going on, where prayer, you basically have God giving you a gift. This is
Yeah.
God's will, and this
Yeah.
is his gift he gives you, and you can do what you want with it. Whether you want to accept it and open your little gift and receive what God has given you in your prayer, because he's like, blah, 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 pray, blah, blah, he's praying.
Yeah.
Or you don't need to open it. But magic, you don't really have the same choice. So that's what I'm trying to say is like in this situation is like in the magic portal door opening, just like with Monsters Inc. getting through
Hmm.
these portal doors, you don't know what's going to be on the other side.
Exactly. And so what you hit upon was something I was trying to write about when before I became Orthodox. Wasn't going to church at all, but I was studying a lot of magic. And they say you have to write your own system. If you want to be a true magician, you have to think of your own magic and, write it up and have a treatise of
Sure.
it, right?
I probably did something near that myself without
Uh-huh.
knowing.
And what I called it was slack magic because I was like, okay, if I can get anything I want in the material world by using these formulas or whatever, that kind of limits me to only the things that I can think about. And I want to be open to surprises. I want to be open to gifts. Like you said, I want to be open to
Right.
God's will and co-creating a life that gives me things that I couldn't even, that are better than what I could even dream of. Right?
Right. Because God is so outside of time anyways that he already knows what he's gonna give us. Sorry, I can't talk about time. I start getting too tripped out trying to zoom the camera out that far. But
Uh-huh.
uh saying yeah, there so I totally lost my thread there. Forgive me. I had a meta cosmic moment. But when we pray to God for what we want, it's kind of like pointless because it's like God already is just gonna I don't want to say God's gonna do what God's gonna do because that gives the wrong impression. But
Mhm.
it's kind of like you got to be really careful what you're praying for because God will open doors for you. It's almost better to have doors closed because if you get all these doors open that you want to go through, you may have to go through a lot more to get what you want, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And so in many ways, that's why we just pray, God, let your will be done and have mercy on me. Like whatever needs to happen for this to happen, just do it with love and
Mhm.
kindness, rather than what I really want to make happen.
Right. And it's so much effort. Like that's what I was finding out when you study ritual magic. It's like your entire life you can spend learning how to do these things the perfect way. And it's just like with me, never underestimate how much I cannot be bothered to put effort into something. That's that's why I want God's will because it's so much work just to get your will all the time. And I'm a water sign, like we talked about. I want to go with the flow. I don't want to. I like working hard, but I don't want to work hard. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't mind
Well,
labor, but I don't want it to be tedious effort for no like little reward. And so I made this thing called Slack Magic, and this is why I don't sell this book
a little
anymore. Huh?
go a little higher. I
Yeah,
want to see the.
because I was trying to put together like principles of Christianity plus what is it called? Church of the Subgenius and my
I
own
was just I was
cuckoo
gonna
belt.
ask if you've heard of Bob Dobbs and
Yeah.
Slack because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
why it was Slack magic because I don't want to do all of these magic formulas. I don't want to work for the devil. I don't want to like sweat of my brow for evil.
So, what was one of your techniques you had?
Okay, so it's like one was have no fear because like fear leads to hate. And I was talking about like instead of paranoia, you should have pronoia, like believe, like positive vibes.
Right.
Okay. Instead of fearful vibes. Um, the next one was everything is play. Like if you think of things as a game, it's not that serious. Like Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar type.
Right. Exactly. Because think about anything you're working on when your whole person. I hate the word personality because it sounds so psychological, but when your whole personhood, when your whole personage is
Mm-hmm.
involved in something, it doesn't feel like work. It does feel like play, even if
Yeah.
you are working on something.
I mean,
Work
even
is
if you're digging a hole if you're thinking of it like a child or a dog or something, like we're digging a hole, like this is
Right,
fun,
right.
you know.
Yeah, work is only work when part of you is divided, and
Yes.
you're fragmented.
And I was talking about some things in the Tao and the Sufi and how they, advise people who have to do labor. So I was reading a lot of Eastern mysticism.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was one of them. Everything's play. Number three was like gratitude is so important. Number four was like have faith. Number five, don't force it, use the force.
It's funny because these are all things, and I mean this in a very good way, endearing way, that are very Christian-esque, you know?
It was very, what is that word when you mash all of the words?
Perennial,
Yes. Yeah.
syncretistic.
Syncretistic.
Yeah, yeah.
Syncretism.
Well,
Not
look, let's be real.
synchronicity.
Yeah, let's be real. Most people that are looking for spirituality in the Western world that aren't, I mean, I'm just gonna say Orthodox, fine, other Christian too, but
Uh-huh.
other Christian denominations include weird mystic stuff in them that aren't of the tradition. But anybody that is basically looking for spirituality in our times, it isn't. I'm gonna be bold and say it isn't Orthodox. They're gonna have some sort of syncretistic religion.
Yeah.
I'm not like mean to say so. It's just like how many people do you know, yourself included, myself included, that was like swimming in those waters, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was
And the
all about like,
Disney film, and our Disney films are in those waters. That's what we're saying on our show here. That yeah.
because they appear wholesome on the surface, but when you get drilled down, it's not that
Yep.
wholesome.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to Princess and the Frog. I'll like
Right.
give you yeah.
So here's what I thought was interesting. When the old dude had like the 100 seances and he opened the realms to make the house haunted, um, the ghost tried to get him to unalive himself.
Yeah, I was trying to reflect. I was reflecting on this, and like the simplest authentic answer I could give without being over wordy is like that's what demons do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, like that's what they'll do.
That
So
that's their whole point of what they're doing to like when you contact them, that is their goal. Because people who unalive themselves are punished in eternity. I'm not punished, but I'm like, you can't do that.
yeah, that's that scary stuff, and I won't try to extrapolate it here. That's like the quote unquote scary thing. Well, it's not quote unquote. It is what's scary about our faith as Orthodox, is we believe that people that unalive themselves do go straight there, and there's not really any hope for them.
Yeah.
And it's pretty like it's honestly beyond me to talk about on a YouTube podcast. So yeah.
It's really heavy stuff, but I
On
mean,
that note, on
hmm?
that note, with this film, what I thought was interesting about all that too is because around that time, bad demon guy, Hatbox enemy, he basically tries to get jumping ahead. He tries to get them to give up their souls so that he can have his 1,000th soul in
Hmm.
the haunted mansion and close up shop and just make it, I don't know, ghost factory forever or something.
Yeah.
But what I thought was crazy was like the the bad guy realizes he can't get the main character, so he goes after the little boy who's also grieving because he's lost his father,
Hmm.
Rosario's baby boy.
Hmm.
And he was a little bit of a man. All I gotta say, he was a
He
good
was
actor.
9, I think they said, because they made
He
a
acted like,
joke.
he
They're
acted like he
like,
was 15.
what?
He acted like he was 15.
Well, they made a joke about his age. Like, she's like, is he old enough to hear all this stuff? And she says something mature, and they're like, no, he's not old enough. And she's like, he's old enough.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's a whole new thing in this world. Like kids apparently are just like super old, and it's okay to just expose them to anything.
Right.
Yeah. But my one note on this really was that basically Lakeith Stanfield tells the other little kid that he's like, hey, don't listen to the evil ghost. You and I can be miserable together forever. I can share you and I can wallow in our misery together. And my one little bumper sticker was bad demon feeds on grief, but humans wallow in it together.
Oh, right.
Because there's kind of again these weird messages that these films these days, and it's like I confess I went online a little and was kind of checked out some like Disney fan reviews of this movie, and what people that are very much I would say not really. Forgive me, Lord. Don't have a very nuanced spirituality, at least in their public persona, with what they're talking about with their Disney fanboyism. A lot of them were saying how happy they were that it talks about grief and how to deal with grief and exposing your children to grief at a young age. And I was kind of like, I could go mixed bag on it because I'd say as a Christian, we definitely expose our children to suffering like pretty early on,
Mm-hmm.
but there's been redemption in it. We have a whole different sort of metaphysic to go with that grief and
Mm-hmm.
suffering makes it in a whole different context without explaining orthodox stance on grief. You know what I'm saying? Versus the sort of haunted mansion Disney spirit version of dealing with your grief, just
Yeah,
talk to the right spirits and you guys can have a party together all the time and your grief will no longer be there because you have ghost friends.
right. And yeah, so the ghosts fill in the role of living people in dealing with your grief. And when they do another seance, it was the man that astral projects this time, and a demon comes to take over his body when his soul was in the spirit world.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
And they report that that's the real thing. Like, you don't leave your body unguarded.
So dropping in a book here for reference, Soul After Death by Father Seraphim Rose. Have you heard of this book or checked
I've
it
heard of
out?
it. Yeah, go ahead and tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's a bit of a tough read. Not because for any technical reason, but it's basically a lot of recorded near-death experiences of the modern world. And so you're getting just word for word what a lot of people have said. So a lot of Father Seraphim, and then other than that, it's a lot of saints commentary on the toll houses and things like that. But I just bring it for reference that if anybody's interested in sort of, well, souls and death and the body and the soul,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great book. And then also, yeah, maybe we'll get to it when we get to Princess and the Frog. I could bring up my little chart I made tonight for body, soul,
Okay.
split, and
Okay.
psyche. Yeah.
Yeah, so kids, do not try to go astral projecting because ghoulies can take over in your body when you're not there. Um, and so this is when they find out that there's like an arch demon or an arch ghost who the other ghosts are scared of. So
Yeah, again,
there's
with
like
like
benign ghosts and a bad ghost.
world, yeah, the metaphysics of this world, you're just kind of like, wait, I don't really get who's in charge here. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to know.
Well, it's kind of goes along with all of the other Hollywood movies about hauntings because like 9 times out of 10, the ghost is just trying to get you to solve the mystery of its demise, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's not
yeah.
really nefarious. It just wants you to pay attention and like get the guy who killed them or whatever.
Which again, it's like you got to think like even if somebody that's like cool and astute and symbolic and wants to take these movies at face value and try to like find some real meaning in them, it's just this terrible bait and switch by the demons in Hollywood to make you think that like uh oh, evil and ghosts, they're just really people that haven't been heard and they're misunderstood, and if you just kind of give in to them and go down these lower feelings and become sympathetic and compassionate, everything will be better. And again, without doing like a whole apologia for our side, but it's kind of like, man, there are spiritual traditions, our tradition for one, that explains these things in a lot better, more realistic way, that if you really do want to communicate with the dead, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a seance, but like how we talk to the saints and we pray to them,
Mm-hmm.
there is a way that we have sort of established language for how to deal with the other side, in our
Mm-hmm.
tradition. Where whether again, it might not always be to your liking, you might not always be able to talk to your mom, sort of through mystical contact, but at least you have something solid, tried and true, and handed down.
There's parameters for dealing with departed. Yes. So we pray for the people that are asleep in the Lord. And we ask the saints to pray for us. So the people we know for sure are close to God, the saints, right? We talk to them and then we pray for our friends and family who have died. And in that way, there's always hope that we could see them again.
And no one is dead in Christ. Everyone is alive in Christ. And so
Yeah.
that's like one of these when we get crazy about our evangelism and we're like, you gotta be a Christian, dude, you gotta be a Christian. It's because like on some level there's this great joy of knowing that nobody is truly dead.
Hmm.
And sure, you can we can make up our own Force Ghost Star Wars pop culture theology to try to our esoteric decoder ring for how to make that true, or you can also just be like, yeah, go read the fathers and the church and everything we hand down, and well, you know, it's been revealed to us by God that this is the way the universe and the beyond universe works
Yeah.
in our relationship with the dead. We're, like you said, asleep because they're not really dead. No
Right.
one's dead in Christ. And once you're baptized, I guess that's why I brought the point up about the Christianity is if you're baptized as a Christian and ideally, obviously living that life, you you would well you get the benefit. I don't want to say benefits, rewards, but you know, you get the sort of you live in that land of that mythos, you could
The
say.
peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sad when you know
Which
that there are people that you love that you might not know what their fate is, you know?
which is something Ben, the character in this movie, was searching for, trying to invent his particle beam camera and all of that. He just wanted
Well,
that.
right. Because think about how boring of a movie it would be as if he really got to a church, learned how to pray, and that was the end of the movie.
Yeah. You wouldn't have a lot of CGI going on in that.
No.
Okay, so the arch ghost, the arch demon, he wears a top hat like a magician and a Freemason, and his name is Alistair.
I know, I made a
Alistair.
note of that for sure.
Alistair Crump. That's a terrible name. So Alistair Crump was the son of a real estate tycoon named Addison Crump, who was a cruel father. Alistair had his Gatsby era, but he killed a bunch of people and got into blood sacrifice.
Yeah, like you call this Gatsby era.
Well, that was the story, right? Like he came back and started having parties and killing people and sacrificing them to the devil. And I just thought, well, this is a lovely, you know,
Kids movie.
yeah. So, um, and he has been trying to get the little boy to kill himself this whole time because he needs his final soul to be willing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I jumped ahead a bit, but that's what I was saying when he gave up on astrophysicist guy, he moved right for the little kid. And we'll talk later about little kids and demons too.
Mm.
Talk about there's Inc.
Oh, right, exactly. So yeah, he is on trend with his unaliving. He wants the little boy to do that too, so he can see his dead father again. And the mediums come together to defeat Crump, not the priest and the patriarch. It was the mediums, right?
Right, right. And where did the note I put here? Oh, basically, the priest gets the ghosts to go fight evil, which I thought was an interesting like I don't know. He's kind of like a shaman, right? On some level, if
Mm-hmm.
if he's commanding the spirits and getting them to do stuff, it's like his priesthood is kind of in a way just a shamanhood
It was
on
like
some level.
that scene in Lord of the Rings where he gets the ghost army to come fight with him at the end, right?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is way better.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Aragorn, Aragorn's way more based than Father Kent. I thought one last note I kind of have on this one was so at the end the wife sends him that gift from the spirit world, right? The cat.
the tater
The
tot.
tater tot the cat that's
Yeah.
loafing on his porch, which makes him cry. But I was just like literally like what is the spiritual dynamics of this movie? Like, is it an angel? Is there a god? Was it her? Who sent the cat? How does this work? Like, I might be spurging
The
out right now.
wife sent the cat from the beyond as a familiar.
Right. But then you got to wonder, okay, what kind of spiritual world is it where any Joe Blow who goes to heaven or wherever this place is now suddenly has powers to like that are worthy of God to send down incarnate kitties,
Yeah.
you know?
bestow gifts upon you from beyond.
Right, right, right. And it's just kind of one of these interesting things that, again, like maybe I'm beating a dead horse with all this, but to me, I just being imaginative, I can't help but wonder if you were to like peel behind the scenes of these movies, theologies, you'd be like, what kind of spirit world is this? Like, I don't want to
Oh
live
yeah,
here, you know?
it's not cohesive at all.
There's at least no salvation at the very least of
Right.
eternal life, right?
Well, that was Haunted Mansion, and I bet you didn't think it would be full of blood sacrifice and demons trying to get kids to unalive themselves. But here we are in 2023. That is a PG movie.
Yeah, and you have the kids being coerced that, but also the parents sort of lowering themselves down to the kids' level, and rather than inspiring the kids to come up, being like, "No, I'll be on your grief level with you," and see, I'm just an incompetent dad as well, and we can wallow in it together, boy, you know,
Hmm.
which I felt was not like kids need to look up to somebody. We don't need to like be coming down to the level of trying to always please the children, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good
think
point.
that's problematic.
Um, well, let's linger in New Orleans for a minute and talk about The Princess and the Frog. And this is funny because I thought it was called The Frog Prince, but it's not. This is
Mm.
her story, not his story.
Ah, so have you seen this one before watching this now?
Yeah, I think I saw it when it came out.
Mhm.
But I hadn't seen it since then. And
Nice.
this is probably one of the last animated princess movies. Is Frozen animated or is it
Yeah,
CG?
I have that on my note, but Frozen's 3D, but yeah, I put this is I think our this is one our your and I's first official Disney princess romp we'll be going through here.
Hmm.
Uh and yeah, the first 2D animated one, but also the last. And I guess
And
you could say
the first Black princess.
yes. And the first one that takes place like in America in a real place in
Hmm.
the Disney film.
Right.
This one's interesting because, like, with these films, looking at it from our sort of Disney religion historian hat, this is none of these movies have Walt Disney's involvement at all. So it's kind of interesting seeing. I mean, we're talking about Disney, Walt Disney, and then when he's gone, what has become of the company and all the movies that kind of make in his wake when basically the visionary leader of the whole religion, you could say, or whatever entertainment business is gone.
Hmm.
And so I just say I thought it was interesting where this movie is kind of hits close to the classic Disney movies because it's one, 2D princess movie, but also there were people probably on this who you gotta think it's maybe like third degrees away from Walt. You'd have like Walt, then you'd have his animators right below him, and then there'd be the young ones after that who did like the Renaissance era,
Hmm.
beginning of Aladdin and all that, and those people worked on Princess and the Frog. So there's still a little bit of a tie to the classic Disney stuff in these, at least aesthetically, you know?
Hmm. Well, they started out with The Evening Star is Shining Bright, and that was kind of a throwback to Pinocchio.
I have that on my notes. I made a little note I wanted to be poetic here with our Disney hymnology as we
Uh-huh.
talk about spirit world. We have, yeah, the evening star is shining bright. Make a wish and hold on tight. There's magic in the air tonight, and anything can happen.
Yes.
But my favorite one from well, maybe you'd know it, but from Cinderella. A dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. See, when you're unconscious and you go into dreamland, that's when you get all your magic. Just like
Mm.
Mickey,
Hmm.
conscious. In dreams, you will lose your heartache, and whatever you wish for, you keep. Have faith in your dreams, and someday your rainbow will come shining through. So, no matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come true. Isn't that just so lovely, Jamie? What a wonderful way to live your
Yeah, it sounds great.
life.
Uh,
As
Dream.
we see from all our Disney movies, dreaming kind of gets you in trouble. And that was, if I may, maybe run here a little bit with the momentum. I was saying before we got recorded, I had little notes I made on sort of magic and occult
Uh-huh.
that I wanted to share that would be probably good for right now.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
this goes perfectly with the drawing that you made before. So instead of
Yeah,
praying
yeah.
like her nighttime prayers to Jesus, she's wishing on a star. And
Right.
she's
And then she gets
using
turned into a frog. You don't know what's going to happen when you Wishing to the force,
You could get blown up like Jack Parsons. Yeah, anything could happen.
Amen. Okay. So some notes. I was just so forgive me, audience and Jamie. Like I'm probably just gonna read down my little notes I took because I don't want to turn into a long trying to form these into a coherent speech kind of deal, you know. But
Okay.
you can hear it, and I think there'll be if there's something that picks out to your ears. My kind of point with this though, so it doesn't just devolve into me just reading my little list, is that like I'll go and read the fathers or read, you know, spiritual literature, and they talk about all this stuff about like fantasies and daydreams and the logos me and thoughts and how you got to be discerning through your thoughts and your passions. And then like trying to unite all this high spiritual stuff with my day-to-day life. I'm reading these things and I'm like, wow, this is exactly like a Disney movie, like in the negative way, you know, all this talk about fantasy and imagination and dreams.
Mm.
Like the
Hmm.
fathers say like no, 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 no about all this stuff. And then you look
Hmm.
at our pop culture world and it's all like, yes, 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 with all of this stuff. So these are just a couple notes I took uh, from my studies, I guess you could say. And so okay, for just bear with me here. I'll read them through, and then I was trying to give this so that your listeners may have some sort of, in addition to our Disney stuff, some Christian ideas to kind of put this into larger context, like all the religions and spiritual stuff in the world, you
Okay.
know, and how it's different.
Uh-huh.
Okay, messages come either from God and angels or not. Period. So basically, the message is either of the gospel or it's quote unquote something else. And basically, in a simple way, like if it's not Christ, it's not good.
Hmm.
I know that sounds so like black and white. And so it's like it's okay maybe for us. We can go to the movies and have a good time and doesn't affect our religion. But you know, maybe spiritual seekers that are out there, your hippie shamans or yoga teachers or whatever, like they don't realize this because all this stuff is revealed to us that it's through Christ, basically.
Hmm.
And since we're made in the icon of God, we have the power to not be affected by the demon's messages because God's not affected, despite the fact that we are the battlefield for their war against God. So saying, don't worry about it. The demons have no power over us unless we cooperate with them willingly.
Hmm.
And again, in all these films, people are cooperating with the magic forces.
Yes. And they're grooming children to do that.
Exactly. Which remember we were talking about a while ago in our text thread about that show Pauline they're bringing on Disney Plus, like Satan teenage lady. Remember she's getting
Hmm.
pregnant with Satan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So basically, just like you said, we're cooperating with those forces, and so basically, this is an important one. Demons care little for secular atheists, quote unquote. Why? Because secular atheists and people like that care little about God, and so devils don't really care about them. It's like people that are spiritually questing that demons want to come after because we become easier targets for them, right? If
Hmm.
you're open to the spiritual world. So basically, this is why even for non-Christians, it's very important to be aware of these things because people that are seeking for truth, for eternality, for beauty, for goodness, these sorts of things are going to become Wi-Fi targets for demon activity. And hence why I kind of go on this, you know, almost Spurgy like rant about Disney spirituality being dangerous because these characters in these films, they're all like open receptors for spiritual activity. They all have empty lives. They live in daydream fantasies. Tiana's a narcissist, as we'll find out with her obsession with wanting to get her business and like money and all her greed, you know,
Oh, okay.
thing on herself. And basically, what I'm trying to say is all these Disney movie characters, like from Aladdin, Ariel, Belle with her head in the clouds, like they all seem like, and they are to a degree admirable fallen characters, but you know, we're all fallen, right? But in
Hmm.
their fallenness, I'm thinking out loud. What I'm trying to say is like, there's a certain type of fallen spirituality that's the daydreamer, seeker, head in the clouds, imaginative type that is really susceptible to demonic targets
Mm-hmm.
because God is present in reality.
Okay.
God came into history. Our God is not made up. We don't believe in like a Zeus or sphinxes or like what's the guy, Quetzalcoatl, or like things that aren't human.
Hmm.
And so basically, our God, we believe, really came into history. And therefore, God didn't enter into our fantasies or our daydreams or any of our conjectures. That's all the demon's playground. And
Mm.
so basically, our concern as Christians is to observe our thoughts, actions, and attitudes towards others, basically. Fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. It's like we make such boring movies as well, not like we do make boring movies, but if we were to make a movie about the Christian life, like
Yeah. It's all the right choices, which is so boring. Like
right, right,
for a
right.
story arc.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just people struggling and crying over about
Mhm.
how they're so sinful, and
Yeah.
like if you see Man of God, great film, and there's even one on Joseph the Hesychast, like these are good films. I'm not trying to say they're bad films, but they're not action based with romance and demons, it's just like
Right.
dudes trying to live a right life and being like prejudiced upon because of it.
Yeah.
So basically be very, very, very careful with our daydreams, and like we get Ariel's fantasies in the sea witch, which causes her to lose her voice and her soul.
Hmm.
I got one little more page of notes and then we can move on. Sorry. In occultism, there's basically no creator God, just energies and forces, like in our voodoo world.
Right.
Because basically the question otherwise would be, why are we tampering with this stuff? If there really is a God there, it begs the question of like, who is it you are communing with?
Hmm.
And when we don't believe in it, if we just believe God's impersonal sort of deal, it makes it basically easier for us to get what we want. And when there's no creator and there's no ownership, you basically get forces battling for territory in the spiritual world.
Hmm.
Just like in our haunted mansion, we even have the good ghosts versus the evil ghosts in this dimension. And so basically, you get this sort of feudal system of spiritual, like karma CEOs, chain of order command, spiritual beings, or you get a sort of wide open frontier where you have sort of the happy go lucky spirit world with like one evil witch who's out to like squash the whole spiritual world's MO.
Hmm.
And so basically, if there's no impersonal forces, this is what you're gonna get. Your movie films, your characters will either have psychical abilities, natural gifts, fortune telling, things like this. They'll either get into wizardry, which is basically no real gift, it's all learned
Mm.
in wizardry, or witchcraft, which is basically not the combo of the two. Sort of
Mm.
your natural abilities plus learning. And yeah, basically in a word, I'm skipping a bit. Occultism boils down to God's will versus our will. And basically, the problem with occultism is that it's so aesthetically appealing. That's how it draws you in, you
Hmm.
know. The cross is not very appealing in that way. That's why Christianity is so like so offensive to so many people. On
And
that level, not only, but on that level at least.
yeah, it doesn't have the mystique that
Right.
a cult
Well,
has.
and even like in our sort of admitted the interest in Disney aesthetic and the beauty of the parks, you could walk around or even any great manicured park or like anything that's just aesthetically beautiful. It's like how many movies is it that like the witch dresses up as some beautiful woman to change herself over? Even the devil will do the same thing in films.
Hmm.
Aesthetic are that one way that you just got to watch out for them because they really start playing on your fantasies and your passions. And and so like what I was going to get at with this with so my other drawing for the night.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when I was talking about God's will versus our will in the fall, so here we have our Christian, so this we have our spirit, our body, and our psyche, which also means soul. But I put a
Uh-huh.
P so the chart is easier to read.
Okay.
So in the fall, and then you can't really see it in here, but I have a little circle in the middle, and that would be our will,
Uh-huh.
our body. Our will is our spirit, our body, and our psyche when it's in union and flowing and doing good. And this is the Trinity connecting us to our spirit. And in a way, when we're in a sort of Gnostic system or any sort of broken spirituality, man's cut off from the truth, from the spirit of truth, the Holy
Hmm.
Spirit,
Hmm.
Christ. And then when you're cut off from that, you go in this body mind dualism. That's why the dualism thing is such a crucial thing in our culture because, and this is what's the kind of mind-boggling thing about orthodoxy is like we're just so, and I can't speak for the church, but like from my reading, we're just so hardcore, quote unquote, in the sense that like this top spirit up here, this is nothing other than the Holy Spirit.
Uh-huh.
Like if you're not partaking in the Holy Spirit, you're going to be in a mind-body dualism.
Okay.
Like Christ restores this fallen, split, cut off from the Spirit. Christ restored that. And
Hmm.
so, if you're, we'd say that when you're a Christian and you're baptized and you're living the life of the church, your spirit, body, soul are in harmony together.
Hmm.
But otherwise, you're basically cut off in dualism. It's a simple way to put it. And this is
What
our
is that Trinity with the
goblin. This is our
blue on it?
goblin. This is our bizarro trinity. These are
Okay.
the spirits. These are the spirits that can get into you when you're not living the real spiritual life.
Oh, okay.
Which I mean, I'm a sinner. Come on, I'm I'm in no position to talk, but I'm being vain just being on a podcast here. But like, my point is that bizarro spirit world will enter into us and act as a pseudo spirit.
And cut us off from the very thing.
Yes, when we
Right.
are cut off. See, all man is. This is the crazy thing. Is like man, fallen man, is cut off from the spirit.
Hmm.
The Holy Spirit, it fills everywhere and is present in all things. But in many ways, in our baptism, when we say we're sealed with the Holy Spirit, that's like saying it can never leave. You're kind of in this more unified, harmonious triangle
Hmm.
versus the one outside of the church, let's just say, for your and my purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to that, the second triangle that traps
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
in duality.
Yeah.
And this goes along with your first drawing too, because I saw a video about the Force by Freddie Prince Jr. He was on a podcast describing, he says, George Lucas told me all about the Force, and it's a real thing. And it is just like the yin yang, the balance. Okay. So it's not like good triumphing over evil, because he says if you know about the Force, you'll be able to predict who's going to win every Star Wars movie, because like one movie the good guys win, the next movie the bad guys win, one movie the good guys win, the next movie the bad guys win. And on the surface it's supposed to keep you, drawing in for cliffhangers, but this is what they're trying to explain about the Force. Like, it doesn't care about good and evil, it's just trying to keep some kind of balance.
Well, and that's why, like, and look, this was the mind-boggling thing about our spiritual world. I'll say, yeah, that's true. But is that a force you want to really live with and call your highest good? If your force can have a disturbance in it, like our God doesn't have any disturbance in him. There's
Mm.
no disturbance in the Trinity, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And so for there to be disturbance in the force, like just it begs a lot of spiritual questions that if that were my God, I'd kind of be like wondering, who am I worshiping at the end of the day? Like,
Right.
don't I want the thing that I believe in to put all of my confidence and hope and faith in to be a little more personal, relatable, loving, knowing that it'll always be good, knowing that like maybe at the end when I die, I'm not just gonna be like cosmic space dust, but
Right. Or
yeah.
recycled into a worm or a cow or whatever. Like,
Oh, Lord help me.
yeah.
So, anyways, that was my long little rant on occultism and magic, and just some bullet notes. So when we walk about these movies, when I'm trying to see it through this lens of like, in a word, impersonal forces. Got to be careful with that in your will.
Yeah. So this is what she's doing in the very beginning. Hold up your two magicians, or
Our monk and
and your
magician.
Christian. Yeah. So in the beginning of Princess and the Frog, Tiana is praying to the star or the Force or the magic or
Right.
whatever. She's wishing on the star instead of praying to the Father. And also, the star could be Venus. They say it's the evening star, and Venus is the Lucifer. So right off the bat, one
Ah,
could say that she's already just praying to Lucifer.
right.
And that's not very far of a leap either. They don't say exactly what the star is, but if it's
Well,
Polaris,
later,
Venus, if it's Sirius.
you could almost say, for like the sake of, like, again, is I'm just putting on my sort of pseudo esoteric decoder ring hat. You could say if we're looking at this film all as one whole, we do get a star later on in the movie that is named and referenced. That's sort of the magic goddess star, Evangeline. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we could even go as far as a stretch that say Tiana's wishing on that star.
Okay,
Kind
good point.
of
And then
in dream
I have
logic
a
is kind
remark about that when we get there.
of, okay, me too.
Okay, good. All right, so straight off wishing on a star instead of praying, and then they talk about voodoo magic, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
The Bokor or Dr. Facilier is his name.
Which means easy, easy, effortless. That's what
Uh
facile means in Latin root.
he says that you can use this for good or bad. So there's your magician again, your checker
He
word for, right?
he also says, fun fact about voodoo, you can't conjure anything. I can't conjure anything for myself. The real magic is money.
Yeah.
And I just laugh because, dude, fundamentally, at the end of the day, folks, can I get camera two? Disney magic is Disney dollars. I mean, let's be
Exactly.
honest, like, yeah.
He does make the point because the John Goodman, the Big Daddy character, he is the real power of the
You know,
movie.
it's interesting, and he's a good guy.
Uh-huh.
Not to like do too many apologetics here, but he's not a bad character. He's the one that has actual power and
Uh-huh.
influence and wealth, and he doesn't get into too much trouble in the movie.
Well, I
Fancy that.
kind of appreciated how they didn't make the little rich girl to be a snob or a brat or, she was very kind and empathetic.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. Because they do have a class distinction um in this movie. The mom works for the rich white man and then they have to take the train to the ghetto. Um and they're saying, it's good to have family even if you don't have a lot of money. They had a lot of friends and sharing. So that was nice. Um
I found in this film with my second chart my little bizarro trinity.
uh
Um, I want to give, because I was thinking about, I was like, what good can we find in these Disney movies, Jamie? There's got to be something, right? Like, I think a lot of,
it's got to
good.
be whitewashed or you won't take the pill. Like, you ever try to give a cat its medication, you have to put it in cheese.
Exactly, exactly. So, saying I almost want to play good cop on Princess and the Frog because I found there to be Disney at its best, and why I like this one maybe versus the other movies that we're doing is that how this one's kind of tied to Walt Disney. It's like they were really wanted to kind of like make this one like the old films, right?
Mhm.
That's why they're appealing, doing the 2D and all that. So I was curious watching this one because I'm like, okay, this one's gonna maybe be a little more on the nose of having good values in it than a lot of the other movies, maybe. And I found a lot of like I basically made my little list of like Christian themes on one side and then bizarro Christian themes on the other, where there's like all these, like you were just saying about the cat pill. It's a great metaphor. There's like so many Christian themes in these Disney films that are like there, but kind of filtered through this bizarro, not quite, where you could then read them as what I like to say pre-incarnational. Yeah, they're getting there. It's kind of the right spirit, but there's no Christ. Or you could be like, yeah, they're kind of doing it. It's kind of right, but it's so off the mark by just enough that it's kind of demonic and crazy when you
Yeah.
really start to think
It's the
about it.
perfect psyop, really.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay, so the rich girl calls her dad Big Daddy, which I thought is weird. Uh,
Yeah, no comment.
maybe the internet has ruined my brain, but yeah. And then you have Prince Naveen of Maldonia, who has lost his fortune. So fallen patriarchy, right?
Yep.
And she's an independent, career-minded woman. She doesn't have time for friends or love.
Yeah, so their big thing to kind of do the esoteric decoder ring is they're both greedy and lazy because on some level I'll have to find my the prince is cut off from his parents' money and knows that he knows nothing about anything basically. Tiana is in a way she's inverted where she knows nothing about love or
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
because she's cut off from her father god figure, and
Mhm.
in a way she they're both cut off from love due to their passions, him from being lazy and not working, her from being overworking and having no time to let her hair down and dance kind of
Too
deal.
much ambition.
Yes, exactly. Her ambition and her attachment to the past too. I'll do this for you, daddy. I'm gonna make my dad happy. It's like,
Oh yeah.
again, it's kind of that Christian idea of serving the Father, pleasing our Father in heaven. and serving God, but in the sense it's literally like, no, my dad would want this, you know. It's like, I don't know, one of those things where like where Christ says, you know, you must love me more than you love your family. And it's like the way that Mary Magdalene instead of Martha, or Mary, I don't know, forgive me, I don't know if it's Magdalene. Mary instead of Martha gives all her time to Jesus, where Martha's like, Dad, what the heck? You're supposed to be helping me out in the kitchen and all this stuff. And Mary's like, no, no, it's really about worshiping God.
Yeah.
In some way, like when we're just attached to our family legacy, like so much of this movie is about, she seeks legacy over love
Okay.
in a way.
Yeah.
Because she basically kisses the frog for money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He offers her money to start things. She's like, oh, okay, I guess, yeah, I guess I'll give up. I guess I'll do that magic that I don't know I'm getting into, all for
Right.
the sake of my money. Yeah. That's why I said earlier she was a narcissist.
Yeah, so she has a one-track mind. The prince is just kind of not mature, not stable like a man his age should be by that time. He's broken, has to marry rich or get a job, and he runs into the voodoo doctor, the Baron Samedi character, the Dr. Facilier, who does a tarot reading
Mm-hmm.
on him and traps his soul, or he calls it transmorgification, which is like turning into an animal, right?
Right.
And he does it with his blood. So he gets the blood of the prince. Prince turns
And
into hmm?
oh, I was just gonna say, and he does this all through basically conversing with his voiceless, wordless spirits. So
Yeah,
again, getting back to our prayer. Prayer is so simple. We offer words, simple things like our prayer beads, prostrations, our voice. And I guess I'm trying not to make too long of a statement, but just by saying, making almost compare and contrast between using your words in your speech and a God who is word, Christ is the word, and our emphasis on words and speaking. And then in this spirit world, you're just kind of like, I don't even know what these things are. They don't have voices. They're just weird, scary shadows that are faceless, nameless, voiceless, wordless. And then when he runs out of voodoo juice, he has to go back to them to keep umping the ante, you know?
yeah. Did you find the tarot scenes and the voodoo scenes to be a little creepy or
I mean, yes, I confess there's a part of me that like aesthetically I admit is like, oh, these are good colors. I thought the colors were really good in that scene, and I like the 2D animation. But yeah, it was pretty scary.
I don't think I'd want my kids watching tarot card cartoons and like voodoo gods.
Well, I'm teasing a bit, but I had call it divine providence or I don't know what. Also, Lord have mercy, but I saw a couple minutes of Monsters Inc. with a little my friend's kid who was there, and he saw some of it, and he had like never seen it before.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about that when we were watching it. I was like, why are we even watching this movie? This like, but he's a kid that like grew up on monsters, and they do like monsters in the house and all this stuff. So it was just like, I don't know, it was just crazy watching it with a really small kid. I was like, these things
Yeah.
are ugly. Like they're because I was thinking about like being around all our beautiful young children in church and like they all kiss the saints icons and in all of our icons, it's like they're all so human focused, right?
Yes.
Like we
Yeah.
don't have a pantheon of like animal theomorphic gods, you know? And somebody can do the whole like, what about Saint Christopher, dog-headed, whatever, you know, I know that's a thing, but like by and large, we're like human focused.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, just it's kind of mind-boggling when you hang out with really little kids and you see them around ghoulie ghouls and like how much they gravitate to them. It's kind of crazy.
I know. I watched the live action Lion King with a kid and I was kind of like, am I culpable for like hurting this person because
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
like so how do I put this? Homoerotic.
sure.
Blatantly, like Timon and Pumbaa are a couple.
Huh.
And I know the kid's not getting it, but it's getting in there
All right.
that two boy animals are married.
It's like, what does that even mean? They're animals, yo. Come on. That's like how I felt when we were watching Monsters Inc. with this kid. And the funny part is he was more interested in iPad more than anything else. Like for us, you put a TV on and we're like glued to it from our generation.
Right.
For the kids today, it's like TV doesn't even affect them in the same way.
Yes.
iPad is way more interesting, you know?
The cathode ray too has no power over them.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so we've got tarot cards, voodoo gods, transmogrification, all the things that kids need to know about. Bokor male voodoo doctor is called the Shadow Man.
Hmm.
Um, and he turns the prince into a frog. And then when Tiana tries to kiss the frog, she turns into a frog. Why do you think that is?
You know, I'd have to give that some more thought, to be honest with you. But when I watched this film about maybe a year or two ago, when I was doing like my Union Disney thing, probably about 2 years ago, the only thing that came to me is like in this whole world of this side of symbolism, let's say, the esoteric Dakota ring world. Usually, like when the hero goes into the other world, the underworld, they often have to put on like animal clothing or
Ah,
or
okay.
like devolve, or there's that transformation where they have to
So
sort of be
this is Tiana's Calabasas.
exactly,
That's a
exactly.
frog. Okay.
And in a way too, it's interesting because like we were saying a couple minutes ago about them being phonies both. He thinks she's a princess, and
Hmm.
he thinks she's a princess, she thinks he's wealthy.
Hmm.
Both are liars to one another.
Hmm.
So in a way you could say that it's the dishonesty between them both that causes them to go below human level. Like what
Hmm.
I found again about this film that's interesting that you could say is pro good and also precarious is that like there's some prayers we say it's like forgive me, I've sinned today, not only worse than a man but even worse than a beast.
Mm. Hmm.
Sins voluntary, but like the idea that like even animals don't sin in the way that they are given a certain nature and they may not have that sort of spirit trinity that we have being made in the image of God, but they have a harmonious body soul, as much as we want to say body soul spirit thing going on with them. So when we mess up and we fall outside of our nature, we're like worse than animals, you know? And so in a way, I just think that even to illustrate her devolving into a frog is kind of showing that she's, I mean, obviously she's gone below her nature by becoming an
Hmm.
animal. And
Hmm.
frogs are really interesting because they're almost like human-like, right? Like their fingers and their
They
sort
have
of the way they
skin
have that.
and yeah.
Yeah, they have like sort of almost like there's that Warner Brothers frog. He's like the dancing, singing one. They kind of like anthropomorphic on their own already. And we like dissect them in school to kind of understand how to dissect humans later or
Oh
something. You
yeah. Uh-huh.
know? That was a joke, but yeah.
Um,
So yeah, Doctor Quick and Easy, Dirty Magician.
well, I thought it was interesting that the Shadow Man cast the spell and they have to go to Mama Odie, the voodoo queen of the bayou,
Hmm.
for help. So,
He's like Mama Laveau.
yeah, so they're appealing to the same system of magic that put them in that position in the first place.
Exactly. So white magic, black magic, both involve will negatively. And yeah, basically my other notes it brings up now, but basically I was just saying there's 3 degrees of magic: healing, relieving of curses, and making amulets.
Uh-huh.
Both two of those are that are in this movie. But yeah, they still involve enforcing our will upon the supernatural, where prayer is basically letting the supernatural, God's will, be done through our own participation and cooperation, where these are just like they're just again greedy. Mama Odie, fix me, please, please, please. I'll give you whatever needs to be done to make the transaction happen in that way. It's not like a real relationship. It's like
Hmm.
uh dare I say it, rapist, very much in a way. It's like
Hmm.
you give me what I want, and I need it, and I need it now by midnight, or else.
Yeah.
It's not a real relationship with Mama Odie.
Did you notice Mama Odie was 197 years old?
No, she looked good for her age though.
Yeah, she said, I'm Mama Odie. So you've got your left hand path and your right hand path with the
Mm,
Shadow Man and Mama Odie. And then, like you said before, they make the point that the real power in the world isn't magic, it's money,
yeah.
right?
And again, this whole movie, she's very clear. I need money for my restaurant, you know?
And I thought this was interesting. Hard work would not have been enough for her. So the whole thing was about her saving and working hard and putting the down payment on
Mhm.
her thing. But then she finds out that she doesn't have enough money, and that's how she gets into the kissing the frog and everything. But the moral of the story is she couldn't have done it on her own with just hard work and ambition and pulling her bootstraps up. She had to appeal to magic and fate to get what she wanted.
Well, right. And this is one of those things that's like, I almost imagine that like I'm trying to be in a like I'm almost in first century Greece. And what you just said was like the religion of the people there. And I'm here trying to be a Christian, telling them how that is very much like what we do, but not.
Yeah.
Because right, it's like that's
Yeah.
exactly he basically does prayer and calling upon God for help and knowing that her will, and just like that, like exactly like he said, her will, all her hard work, her works aren't really enough in the end to get her there.
Hmm.
But God loves us so much, he doesn't need our works or any of that to be continually loving towards us and to bestow gifts upon us, you know, through our Christian life. And so it's just one of these funny, like, guys, you're so close to like believing what we believe, but by not making that step, you get this all other crazy complications going on with turning into frogs, voodoo, witch magicry, and all these things that could just be avoided if you were just a, forgive me, a good
Yeah.
Christian boy or girl.
Yeah. And you don't have to summon demons to help you like the Shadow Man did. That was pretty scary. So he summons up all of these shadow demons that go after the frogs. And that would give me nightmares if I was a little kid, I feel like.
Yeah, and Mama Odie, but see that it shows you that if you have a good witch on your side, you can conquer shadow
Mm-hmm.
demons. You can
Mm-hmm.
also be see kind of like the dude from Big Lebowski and be like a fool for magic, you
Mm-hmm.
know, a fool for the Force instead of a fool for Christ. Or find a good pun for that.
And then we find out that the Shadow Man owes a debt to the voodoo gods, and that's why he had to fool the prince. And so this is very Faustian,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's also foreshadowing of the next movie we're going to talk about, The Devil and Max Devlin, because he owes a debt to the underworld also.
Well, and that's also very much like addiction, which this is my little pivot here into side note, footnote to Aladdin.
Mhm.
Aladdin's all about addiction too, because these whole situations where anybody is going offering where they run out of their voodoo juice or their spell, their wishes, and they need to turn to the other side, quote unquote, they always have to up the ante. And that's just like an addict, you know? He needs to get his fix and keep upping it and upping it and upping it. When they run out, they got to go back and get more.
Mm.
And so don't get me wrong, Disney's not purporting like good be a good addict behavior kind of deal, but they're definitely showing that these when one hey maybe in a good way they're saying that when one gets involved in this voodoo world, occultism, you're going to be dealing with addiction behavior essentially, you know,
Mm-hmm.
creating these addictions to get more spirit.
Addiction, yeah.
Especially if you think, getting back to Freddie Prince's Force, the Force Fool, that's who the fool for Christ will be in this world.
Oh,
We'll call him Force Fool.
yeah.
No, but when you believe that there's a dualism, good and bad, or even it's neutral, it's just about where you put your will in the Force. It's just so much work, man, because then you have to like figure out which side you're on and how to please and do the right things and where is the actual boundary and where's the line and is it okay to actually have sex with this person or not, and I don't know, and should I go out and do this thing, I don't know, where it's like, I mean, I confess that like as being the hero of your own story, magic is exciting because it sends you on an adventure and a quest and a mystery. But man, like it can really get you into trouble. Like, let's put it this way, it led me to becoming a Christian, you know?
Yeah. And it's not going to be there for you when you need help, real, actual help in the real world. All of your magic books is nothing.
Well, not only that, if you're in your magic system, to be silly, your Slack magic, and no one else knows your decoding language, and you're like in a fire in a room burning and trying to say, help me, help me, help me. Nobody will be like, I don't know how to get into the building. Like,
Yeah,
you're on like the 12th floor, throw me down the key card, and be like, I don't have it. It's all thumbprint ID. You
right.
know? No one can get in this burning house but me.
So, what did you think about when the firefly died and went up and became a star?
Yeah, okay, so the star, I didn't I'll say what are your thoughts on that? I didn't think much about that specifically.
Well, I mean, it's kind of thelemic. Every man and woman is a star. We covered the star of Lucifer in the beginning. It became a binary star, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a little
In
uh go ahead.
magic, a binary star usually is a symbol of Sirius.
And what is the thelemic? What is that term?
Oh, thelemic, that's Aleister Crowley's system of magic called thelema, which is the Greek word for
Oh, right,
needle.
right. Alistair Crumb.
Yes, Aleister Crumb.
Yeah, Crump. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Crump,
I
yeah.
thought the only thing I thought the only my only note on the Firefly was that basically he's kind of like the underworld guide that leads them to the divine feminine, the fairy godmother, which is
Mhm.
just kind of like a typical trope in this sort of like underworld journey sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing I was my only comment on all that was that the star's name is Evangeline,
Yeah.
and in Greek, evangelion that is the gospel, evangelical.
Oh,
And so yeah, I just thought is again, I'm reaching. I'm just hashing out the word and maybe sticking it in the middle of the movie. And if there's anything that makes sense of it, sure. And if not, whatever. But yeah, it's funny because the evangelion back in the day, the Roman Empire, the evangelion would be like a message that the Romans would send when they come into your territory and they're coming to set up shop in your house. Be like, here's the good news, Jamie. This is now everything that's going to happen to you under the Roman Empire. And that was called the good news.
oh,
So when
uh-huh.
Christians use the good news and they use that same word and like inverted it and flipped it on their head, there's
Oh,
a subversion. It's like, oh, you want to know the good news? No, this is the good news. Jesus Christ dead, crucified, resurrected,
uh-huh.
you know? So I just thought it was an interesting way that even the word, it's like these things like you're saying earlier about the HOMO animals, the kid doesn't notice that, but it gets in there
Hmm.
nonetheless. It's the same thing with little things like this, like the word evangelical, the gospel being used as a night star,
Hmm.
like sort of feminine, in my opinion, feminine sort of lunar goddess, just basically pagan astrological associations, kind of the subtle ways that these words will influence us. Saying it's important to know that they're saying the gospel in this film is as you're saying, the binary star Venus.
Or Sirius would be the binary
Oh
star.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Venus is the evening star, who are
Yes.
also saying might be the same one as this. Saying when we're doing our pattern recognition, it's not that far of a leap
It's
to say
not
that
that far at all.
the divine feminine goddess star is the one you turn to.
Okay.
And it's need.
Yeah, because Sirius is associated with Isis. So anyway, that was all I had for Princess and the Frog.
Yeah,
Um,
my only notes on this really is that there are a lot of sort of Christian, yet I call bizarro Christian moments, like in
yeah.
this as we're moving along, I'll just do it quickly.
Okay.
We'll do a sort of one and then the other. Work, work, work for your salvation.
Uh-huh.
Good. But working for legacy, not for love of the Lord or salvation proper, not so good. Almost there. That song that's about faith and hope. But it's
Uh-huh.
about faith and hope in oneself.
Mm.
Food brings people together, her father says. Sounds
Hmm.
a lot like the Eucharist to me. But she doesn't believe in wishing on stars. And then later she says, serves me right for wishing on a star after she goes through her whole transformation. So even there, they're kind of showing this ambiguity of wishing on stars.
Yeah.
which is kind of pro-Christian, is what I'm trying to say. Like
Mhm.
she really gets in trouble from wishing on her star. Um, Do your best every day, and good things are good to come your way is one of the songs. And then I put, ever heard of Job? That guy did his best every day, and good things didn't quite come his way in the sense that
Right.
obviously in the end they did.
Yeah.
Um, then we got, of course, good versus evil magic, and then we mentioned that, and then find out who you are, dig a little, find out who you are deep inside, find the image of God is played in that song, dig a little deeper, But I'm just trying to say is like when you go in and dig in and go internal and dig inside yourself, like you just might come out of your own butthole at the end.
Uh-huh.
So you just gotta be careful digging deep. That's
Right.
all I'm trying to say.
Don't drill down too far.
Right. Yeah. Go on. But yeah, that's this movie. Kids, careful with voodoo. Close themes to Christian ideals, but not quite.
I just drank cayenne pepper, sorry.
Oh, you have like that honey
Yeah.
cayenne lemon drink?
It was the last sip at the bottom and it was really spicy. Now my eyes are watering. Okay, let's talk about The Devil and Max Devlin. This was really weird. It was
Yeah,
a it was sort of a Christmas Carol story, a Scrooge, if you will.
yeah.
He has to learn to love story.
So what year for our audience here? 1978,
I think
79?
it's 1981.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Which is the year that Jamie got here into the world.
Hmm.
So you've got Elliot Gould, slumlord,
Yeah.
property manager, um,
Big smoker.
chain smoker, unscrupulous, deceptive. Because in the beginning, all of the tenants are like asking him for things, and he's like, sorry, the owner says no. And you come to find out he's the owner, he's just playing the manager.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
doesn't have to fix anything, right?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those. I'll say what I want when I want.
Yeah,
I'm honest. At least you can respect me for being honest.
yeah. So he's a crumb bum. He gets hit by a bus full of Hare Krishnas.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So neither of us knew what this movie was. We just sort of saw the title and we were like, oh, yeah, I should check this out.
Disney and the Devil? Yeah, we're going to watch that.
I was like kind of blown away the first 20 minutes when they're just setting everything up in this movie. I was like, whoa, there's like, don't miss this one, folks. There's some stuff going on here.
It
The
is.
Harry Chris, it was just so. This was one of these movies I was like, what would Walt do? This is like for me a real
Yeah,
Walt kind of movie. Like, would he really approve this one? Like, especially
yeah.
when he's like falling down into hell. It's like it's so scary,
It was
and
scary. And the imagery was kind of like Hieronymus Bosch a little bit, or Dante's Inferno.
oh
So,
yeah,
so he gets hit by the bus. The Hare Krishnas come out of the bus and they're doing their Hare Krishna thing. And if you've ever been around Hare Krishnas, it's so funny because they're like the sweetest people, but so annoying.
yeah. I not quite Harry Krishna's, but I never. I just want to be clear. I only went as a visitor because I know online I don't have a lot of context for this, but I almost said I did my time, but I did my time as a visitor to Tibetan Buddhist uh, monastery place, like right here in the Redwoods.
Uh-huh.
And it's just kind of weird because like again, everybody's really nice. And this was years and years ago, but it just felt so phony. Like there's just this way that like I don't know, people just all wanted to have Nepalese sounding names and like they all were going to learn what's the language? I guess it would be
Sanskrit?
no, maybe it's like their specific one, whatever it is. They were like learning all the language, like just all these like, good old American boys and girls that were like just shaving their head and getting all weird. And I was just like, dude, this just like in the way they're just so hush hush and reverent around their like masters as they call
Mhm.
them, like super weird, like not to mention these giant statues. Sorry, I'm just like having flashbacks
It
now.
always is interesting to me what kind of people these cults draw in. And Hare Krishnas is very docile, meek, dissociative.
do
Um,
there Were there any famous stories with the Hare Krishnas, like kind of how in the more less codified ones you get like the kind of Oshos and you get the whole that like the compounds with the like that one in Oregon or Washington. Like, is there anything like that with the Hare Krishnas that were like notably crazy Jonestown style?
Not that I know of. And the only times I would come across them
Good.
would be like at the Rainbow Gathering when they cross paths with hippies. And they just sing all the time. And they will sing from sun up to sundown and pat like way into the night, just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Like, please shut up. Like
Yeah.
they will take tunes, you'll know all of the tunes, but the words will be replaced by Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's like that Georgia Harrison from the Beatles is all into the Hare Krishna Hinduism stuff.
Yeah. So that's just a little point in the movie. Like the bus that hit him was the Hare Krishna's bus. So he gets to
You ever
hell.
wonder at the time they're trying to be so topical, right? Like, why would they do that in 1980?
I don't know. Was it just for wackiness component? Or
Yeah,
was it,
the equivalent today,
no, like a cult?
Boy Scouts. No.
Yeah. Um, so he gets to hell and he's welcomed by Bill Cosby, right? Who's a total innocent guy who never did anything bad whatsoever.
Yeah, that part was super weird because he's saying how he wants, quote unquote, three fresh, unsullied, innocent souls.
Well, yeah, so Bill Cosby tells Ellie Gould that you deserve level 4. And he does the whole normie thing like I'm a good person. Like I never did anything super bad. I was just as bad as like the next person. So it's your, typical excuse.
Make an excuse with excuses and sin.
Well, and I was going to ask you, this would probably be a good place to describe the Orthodox view of hell and the afterlife because it's
You
very
know, so I did a lot of notes in the weeks prior thinking of wanting to talk about this, but honestly, I have very little humility, but here I'm gonna just say, folks, go talk to your priest or look up stuff about after because it's complex.
yeah.
It's like on one hand simple and yet it's complex. Like, cause I don't want to just be another dude online who's talking about what orthodoxy is to the world when I have so much to learn on my own. But
Yeah.
start here, Till After Death, Father Seraphim Rose, and honestly, anything you could find about afterlife and hell. I mean, I guess I'd only say at the very least, trying to think of how to say it in context for this movie. I don't think it's orthodox. Let's just put it that
Oh no.
way.
Well, okay. Here's how I could try
Forgive me,
to.
I don't have a lot to go there on that. But to your one point I was gonna say, I'm sorry, go on. I could leave it. I could leave it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, here's how I understood as it was explained to me, and please forgive me if I'm wrong or correct me if I get it wrong, but the hellfire is the uncreated energies of God.
Oh, okay, I could say this much. Yeah, so heaven and hell are the same exact thing. They're the experience of God's love.
Yes.
One is choosing to face it and accept it, and the other, it's kind of like, let's say, I'll make myself a really bad example here if folks can laugh at home. Let's say I have a crush on a girl, or she's my girlfriend, or whatever, somebody I'm in a relationship with, and I constantly am calling her all the time, and she doesn't want to answer my calls. Oh, Paul, he's so annoying. He won't stop calling me, blah, 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 blah. That's like being in hell for us. Though I shouldn't equate myself to God. It's like, God keeps calling you, and he's like, Jamie, I love you. Jamie, I want to get a hold of you. Paul, I love you. I want to get a hold of you. And you're like, no, 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 don't stop. I'll just text you later when I'm not so busy. Or,
Yeah.
yeah. And so hell is the same experience of heaven, but just the rejection of God's love.
Yes. So in essence, I we're all going to the same place, but we experience it differently
Yes.
depending on your relationship with God,
The
right?
thing that I don't feel comfortable saying, and I hope maybe somebody super smart in the comments can help me out. I'm a dummy, but it's like because we have sort of two judgments in orthodoxy, our initial one when we die, and then the final judgment. And I know that we don't believe in purgatory, but in my own like head canon, I start getting confused when I start thinking about like, so wait, what is the state of a soul right now? Are they in heaven? And if they are in heaven, then there's the next judgment. What comes after that? The second new creation, in which case will people leave heaven and then we enter in the new creation because we say that earth will be recreated. Like this is where I'm totally showing how dumb I am and I need more catechism. But yeah, it I get a little confused, honestly, when I start contemplating the afterlife. That's why I try to just work on my repentance in this life, you know?
Yeah, and some people will get mad at you like, you think I'm going to hell? I'm like, no, I don't think anyone is technically going to a place that is just fire. The way I understand it in my dumb mind is like we're all going to the same concert, but if you hate the person that's playing the music, then you're gonna hate it there. But if you love them, then you're gonna enjoy
That's a great metaphor. I like
it,
it.
right? So if you're a Swiftie, you'll love it there. Just kidding. Um, yeah, so he's in hell. They tell him he's going to level 4 unless he can find 3 souls to take his place. And he tries to bargain, like, oh, yeah, I know 3 bad people. I can get them for you. And they're like, no, 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 no. We're going to get those people anyway. We want 3 people that wouldn't be here if not for you. So they send him back to Earth.
And this ties into what I was kind of saying earlier about the danger of Disney magic is that when people are open, like the devil doesn't care about those dirty people that he was trying to offer them, right? Because
Mhm.
he's like, no, 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 they're already doing our bidding. We don't care about them. That's fine. Let the secular atheists just do their own thing. We don't care about them. Sorry, I'm picking on them. But these Disney folks that are into following their dreams and daydreaming in their super innocent youth that just want a happy life and they're tormented in their step family home, go after them. You know, that's kind of
Mhm.
what he's saying. So that's what I was saying. These demons will prey on us in the innocuous ways. They don't care about the ones that are just doing like the obvious Grammy Satanism type of deal, you know?
Right. And they tell you when you join the church as a catechumen, like they're like, you're never going to have as much demonic opposition as right now in your life because you're on this threshold of like making this big decision. So that they're out to not let that happen.
Mm,
Right.
mm, mm-hmm.
So,
If there's any catechists, if there are any catechumens out there, ask your priest for catechism prayers right now because there's an exorcism in them as well.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So he's got to get 3 innocent souls, um, including children. Like this is dark, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
You
What would
gotta get
Walt do?
kids to sign their soul to the devil.
That's what I was saying. What would Walt make about this movie? You know, like I
Yeah.
know the guy got his things, but I feel like this one was a little dark Disney for us here.
Yeah. That's why I want to do Black Cauldron too sometime.
Uh-huh.
So Elliot Gould goes back to Earth, and the first victim he finds is like this singer girl, this young musician named Stella.
Okay, going back just a bit. Remember the way he finds her? The way he uses his powers? He's like does the
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
Ching Chong eye thing, and he's like, I didn't know if that was a joke or not.
It
He's
was
like,
like
she's like, I see her. And I'm just like, what is going on?
it was
Oh man.
really goofy. Like sometimes he could teleport and sometimes he couldn't. I didn't understand the dynamics of that, but so he finds Stella, a young musician who wants to be a singer, and she's kind of like baby Barbara Streisand, is what I wrote down.
Dude, yes, I wrote that same thing more or less. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, I guess in real life that was kind of this woman's thing. I think her name was Julie. Oh shoot, I can't remember her name, but I looked up her wiki and they are kind of calling her the next Streisand, but she
Oh,
never.
well, she looked like her, she act like her, she sound like her. Like, yeah.
Yeah, she had a
Which,
good voice. Most of the lyrics of her song was "It's time to believe in me." There's
oh
all this
yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll love myself kind of stuff.
Which, fun fact, I do not mind Barbara Streisand. I think she's a great singer and I think her movies are really good. So,
Seconded.
yeah. Um, number 2 was Nelson the Nerd.
Yeah, the nerd mode. Ever kept calling him nerd. That was like his default title. It's funny watching this in time capsule mode where like to be a nerd, that would be like, oh, I don't know, calling someone, I don't even know what the equivalent would be in this day and age. That's like Who's the person these days that you're allowed to make fun of? Oh, white guy. You're
Yeah.
just stupid white guy.
Incel.
Like it's okay and permissible to make fun of this person. And yeah, that's kind of what the nerd was back in the day. That's like Revenge of the Nerds time too.
Right. And I think it's funny what he wants to do to me more manly, like motocross. That's such a 80s like Gen X thing. It's so funny.
I know, I thought about that too. I was like, why motocross? Like, what a random, this must have been really cool at the time kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Okay, so Elliot Gould has to get this little singer to sign her soul to the devil, Nelson the Nerd, by motocross, and number three is a little boy named Toby who just wants a dad, like in Haunted
Whew.
Mansion.
Yeah, it's funny
Right?
these movies we pick, they seem to have these interesting ghost winks, as Haunted Mansion said, interface overlaps.
Yeah,
It's these movies across the decades that seem to have these like themes we're finding between them.
I believe Carl Jung would call it synchronicity,
I believe you're right.
right?
Or some sort of archetypal conjunctio.
Yes. So Uncle Max or Elliot Gould, his name is Max, is like creeping on this little boy at the carnival,
Glad
um,
you said, yeah.
making him a target to sell his soul to the freaking devil, and he has to mac on his mom to get to the boy, right? So
And
now,
his mom is, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, now he's wrapped up four people in this whole scheme of him trying to get out of hell and going to the lengths of marrying this lady so he can get her son to sign his soul to the devil so he'd be his dad.
Right, but then there's a sense of like, but if he signs the kid's soul and the kid goes to hell, and then now he just has the lady for himself and he's out of hell free card.
Right. Well, the devil tricked him and he was like, the people won't come to hell until the natural end of their life. And he thinks
Now
it's
it's his trick.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so he starts to mac on the mom by helping her with her daycare. And why does he always like have shaving cuts? I don't
Yeah, I noticed that the guy can't shave. It's like they had to show. It's one of these funny ways they like tried to do character development, but they just didn't. It's kind of
yeah.
like, oh, you're supposed to get the sense that he never has time and he's always rushing around. But I just saw as an audience member, I was like, did he just cut himself shaving today? And they like decided to film anyways?
I
Like,
know, like every scene
total.
he's got these toilet paper.
Okay, total side note. Have you ever seen Witches of Eastwick?
Um, no.
Really? Oh, you probably like it.
That Bette Midler.
No, it's Michelle Pfeiffer, Cher,
Oh, uh-huh.
Jack Nicholson,
Okay.
and another one I'm forgetting. Anyways, there's literally a scene where Michelle Pfeiffer, like in one scene in the movie, she has like a cold sore, and you're just like, what is going on in this? And anyways, you thought it's like witch magic, but it's just a cold sore, literally.
Okay.
And they
Yeah.
filmed that.
So apparently
Sorry, but
he's
no.
not very good at shaving. But he can
Did you
travel. Hmm?
Did you think it was creepy the way he shows up at her house with like that all the play place stuff all set up for the kids? And he's like, I thought you would like it if I just, broke into your yard and set this whole place up with like playground toys.
Yes, I just thought it was funny. Like maybe this could fly in the 80s, but this would never go down today. Like calling her up the same day, I'm madly in love with you. And she kind of like, okay. Today that would be like, sir, you are crazy and I'm getting a restraining order.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the way they macked on each other was total restraining order 2023.
Yeah. So he's starting to turn, his heart is starting to be invested in the children and his clients, which is the nerd motocross boy and the singer girl. So what it is like his satanic power is what gives them talent,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So he can get them to sign his contract.
This is for some reason I'm just thinking right away of like I keep talking about Little Mermaid tonight. It's the same deal with Little Mermaid. Same deal with trying to think of some other Disney classics. Well, in a weird way, Dumbo even getting his little feather gets him to fly at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Aladdin getting his magic lamp gets him his wishes. Hercules, I think Doesn't Hercules do some soul selling too? No, no,
No,
no.
Meg
Anyway,
Meg sells her soul
Meg-
to Hades.
that's right though. See, Meg does at some
Yeah.
point. And Disney soul selling is nothing new, and we're skipping over so many other movies, I'm sure. Uh, if it's not selling your soul directly, it's an exchange of something of the heroes, willingly or unwillingly, by the villain that then cause him to get in this magical contest, like Sleeping Beauty too, right? She
It's
doesn't willfully sell her soul, but by giving her blood to the witch's spinning wheel, she thereby uh, gets in that Faustian bargain. You know what I'm
Faust.
saying?
Exactly. I just had that in my notes. It's Faustian, exactly. And just like Robert Johnson's story at the Crossroads.
Yeah.
And there's an excellent documentary called They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. It's Protestant in the 90s, so it's a little goofy, but it's got several parts in it. Like they will prove to you that in rock and roll you do sell your soul to the devil.
Look, I don't doubt it, man. I mean, it's like these things are on the most subtle, like our kind of thing with Disney is that like, look, it doesn't have to be Luciferic New World Order stuff. Even on the smallest innocuous level, these themes are real. And I'll totally agree. Like rock and roll is totally demonic. Like
Yeah.
find out there and be like, really, dude? But yeah, I don't know. Just like the emotions and things that it can elicit and arouse. I'll speak for myself, especially as I've converted and become a Christian. I look at my old life. I'm like, man, like I'm so sensitive to energies and like sound is such a powerful music is such a powerful force that yeah, music can really, really mess with your mind and
Well,
your
going back
feelings.
to voodoo and rock and roll, the different drum beats signal the arrival of different gods. So
Mhm.
you play, Legba's beat or Oshun or whoever on the drums to get them to come. And so this is infused into rock and roll and the drums, and it's all
Well,
connected.
imagine too, you're like some ancient tribal person, and like, you hear these drums on the horizon, like some other arm, like civilizations coming to come kill you, It's like
Mhm.
drums are scary. Like if you're in the middle of nature and it's all calm and peaceful, and you start hearing like you'd be like, what is that? Like, especially with the rhythmic consistency, you're like, I don't think that's a grasshopper anymore, It's like music has this powerful effect. Like,
Well, and it can change the rhythms of your heartbeat. Um, and I have heard, there's no way to prove this, but the when they would do sacrifices to Moloch in the old times, they would use drums to cover up this crying of mothers and children.
oh, yikes.
Yeah.
The music thing, it's like, I confess, I think so much of my Disney dive began from the music because as a musician and somebody, again, you talk about with Streisand, I like musical theater. I like opera. I like good music. And you hear the music of these Disney films, and it's like top level Broadway composition kind of stuff that
Oh yeah.
like in your
Uh,
ears, years and years and years and years.
Lion King is like Hans Zimmer does not miss with soundtracks. Um, Most Disney movies have an excellent soundtrack.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna refrain from that comment because I would it's half baked, but let's say I'll skip it. Moving on.
Okay, so Max is the source of the special abilities. And it doesn't work for them if he's not around. So he always has to be around for the Barbra Streisand girl to sing. He always has to be around for the nerd motocross guy to win his races. It doesn't really say the boy doesn't have a special gift. He just wants
Yeah,
a dad.
yeah, they don't really explain. That's one of those movies where it kind of all falls short with the boy, what
Yeah,
his is.
he just wants a dad.
Do you
So
hear what said there about like the whole innocent child is kind of still at the end of the day the kind of Christ figure that saves. Again, I'm kind of doing this Gnostic decoder ring Christian thing because think about it, the boy doesn't want anything. He's
mhm.
pure of heart. He just wants his God. He wants his father,
But he
right?
is street smart because do you remember that part where they're trying to strike a deal and he's like, I'll give you my toys if you be my dad. And they're like, and the Max is like, okay. And then the little boy's like, but you got to marry my mom first. And then the devil's helper, Bill Cosby's like, ooh, I like this kid. Like, we could use him. He's smart. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
did you see the part where the girl, Stella, the Barbra Streisand girl, she wins a Grammy
Mm-hmm.
and she only thanks herself, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the Bill Cosby devil helper comes and says, we like them to act like monsters.
I thought it's funny. I was hoping you were going to say that. I don't have much to say other than throwing a little thread to whole like Lady Gaga and her monster children fans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's like, oh, it's kind of interesting to like
Yeah.
make monster and turning it into a good thing. Which again, with
Yeah.
monsters, we'll get to that next.
So for reference, like the Bill Cosby's like the devil on his shoulder that only he can see and is
Yeah.
pops up periodically, like, where's my souls? You've
And
and
did you notice the way Cosby played in this movie? He was played very straight, like monotone. He was like scary.
Mhm.
Like I didn't watch a lot. I mean, I watched a little Cosby Show growing up, so like I kind of know his character. But I watched this and I was like, "Ooh, this was like a departure of." He's playing against type here in this movie, but he's also kind of playing or not, like
Right? He played a really creepy satyr devil. I mean, at the, you know, last act of the movie when Max Devlin has
oh
that
yeah,
vision of him in hell, it's creepy. And then I was like, why is he racing in his car if he can teleport places?
yeah,
There's not a lot of continuity in this movie.
yeah. That was for plot dynamics.
Yeah. Oh, and the old lady. Okay, so the old lady that causes him to get hit by the bus in the beginning, we find out she's some kind of agent, or is she like the angel of death?
Well, that's what this is again like Disney spirituality. This plays into both Princess Frog and especially Haunted Mansion, and this movie especially in Haunted Mansion. It's like, what is the spirit world?
Yeah.
Because he kept calling her, Bill Cosby kept calling her Agent Hargroves. So you
Uh-huh.
think, okay, an agent, she's working for one side or the other of the whatever cosmic forces. But then at the end, um, when Max is trying to get the souls saved because he wants to repent, he then sees the old lady and she basically says it's not his time, the motocross kid's time, and he'll be okay. Right? Remember, doesn't
Mhm.
he run into her again at the end? And
Yeah.
then it got me thinking, is she an angel then?
That's what I mean. Is she the angel of death?
So, or is she an angel of life? Is she an angel of God who's come? Because if she's a good angel, it then makes you wonder all these other questions about the metaphysics of this world. It's
Right.
like, wait, what is this angel setting Max off on his journey? Why is the angel intervening? Or why is the angel like, who is God in this world where there are angels and there's the devil, but there's no Jesus?
Yeah.
Again, it's like Hollywood, they're just so afraid to really talk about real spirituality and real Jesus that they're just going to make these crazy, weird other spiritual worlds where people who aren't discerning enough will be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. There's the devil. Therefore, it's good and evil. And, I thought the ultimate theme of this movie was like basically what did I put? Salvation is achieved through making right choices and thereby defeating the devil rather than being saved through Jesus. Basically, again, it's kind of like the moral story is to trade your soul to the devil, go through your hero's journey, and you'll eventually be victorious and have a
Mhm.
wife and a family, which is like such a weird
And he
theme.
totally got away with it so easy. All he had to do was burn the contracts and nothing bad happened to anybody. And he didn't even have to pay his debt and he got continued to live. So,
Exactly. That's so many things about this movie are just confusing at the end, where you got to wonder, like, so in the end, is it just about providence, really? And this sort of like weird spirituality of God and the devil at best, and at the worst, it's like a guy who's lifting himself up by his own bootstraps, and we're gonna like make the right choices. Like something I recommend this to you and anybody listening. There's a great lecture seminar called "Paradise Has Two Trees" on YouTube by one Deacon Ezra Ham from Oklahoma. And it's like 16 seminar sessions, but he talks a lot about the tree of knowledge versus the tree of life. And in just one quick word, I'd say that when we're making right choices and always acting inside the categories of good and evil, right and wrong, we're still eating off the tree of knowledge, all these false dichotomies of soul and body, good and evil, masculine and feminine. Where the tree of life, Christ, it's like a whole other being entirely.
Hmm.
Like if a whole new letter were added into the alphabet, how much it would change every single thing in our world,
Hmm.
where the tree of knowledge is still always stuck in a box and thinking you can make choices. And even if you're going to make new choices, you're just creating another box that you're living in. And so I thought at the end of the day, this movie was like, it's so weird because of course, like my kind of duh moment is like no movie is going to have salvation through Jesus at the end. Like they're not. Like it'd just be so out of left field. It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So all movies though, but any movie that wants to talk about spirituality is going to try to, but they're always going to fail short because they're going to fall into like, frankly, all these Christian heresies that like the church fathers were like battling against for centuries, that I'm too dumb to, name drop them all.
It reminded me of the end of Fantasia. Do you remember when we talked about that? Like it was the night on Bald Mountain with the Chernobog Devil, and then it was supposed to be Ave Maria, like conquering evil, but the procession led nowhere.
Right, right.
And there was no Christian symbols anywhere to be found besides their singing about Ave Maria. And the same with the Devil and Max Devlin. So it wasn't Christ that overcame the devil, it was just him outsmarting the devil.
Well, right. Again, it's this like Luciferic, Promethean, probably Promethean would be a wider word to use that would work. But the sense that you watch these movies and if you're spiritually looking for help, whether you're, 10 years old or 30 years old or whatever, and you just try to watch movies to get inspired and all these things, it's like they come so close to filling your spiritual tank with gas, but it's like that cheap budget gas that's like 5 cents cheaper than all the other places that you end up having to refuel more
Yeah,
later on
it's
down the
full of
road.
lead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, let's get out of hell and let's go to the other side of the tree of life because that's where the monsters live in Monsters Inc.
Yeah, I want to hear all about this one because I didn't have much on this film. I mean, I had my thoughts about fear and things like that, but in
Uh-huh.
terms of like my esoteric decoding on it, I found it again, a lot of these movies are kind of so simple. It's like the monster symbolizes the dark side of God because we're so light and airy in our world that Western Christianity needs to incorporate its chthonic dark side. And here comes the monster to help us out. It's like easy to see it that way. But
Mhm.
yeah, go on. I'll
Well,
see
I
my comment
I thought
later.
this was pretty ripe with symbolism and theology. So we talked about the Qliphoth, the dark side of the tree of life, the occultists who ascribe to these things, they would call that universe B,
Hmm.
a different dimension, right? One that you can contact with a Ouija board, a medium, all the stuff we've been talking about, a ritual, a ceremony, a sin, all of
Hmm.
these open portals to the dark side, right?
Which this movie's all about portals.
Mm-hmm. And the movie starts with a big M with an I in it,
Hmm.
right? So there's your all-seeing eye, the one eye. We just covered this movie too on a
Dude,
show
look
called,
up Punk too on some level, right?
yeah, kind of. And we covered this on PsyOps Cinemas, and he had the perfect end answer to my question, and it was so poignant and good. I'm going to share it with you when we get to the end.
Okay.
So, all seeing eye, very beginning. M, which I mean, is it a stretch to make it stand for Mason? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But so you've got the
It could
M,
be magic at the very least in
magic,
our
yeah. So you've got the all seeing eye in the opening credits. And it's funny because Jay and I have been watching a lot of creepy videos, like paranormal things, like unexplained, our our doorbell camera picked up this ghost, or like you can't explain why did a kitty turn into a ghost in a light ball and like flow away? Like what the heck? So, and we've been noticing a lot of parallels, or not parallels, like the same things happening over and over, right?
Mm,
So a lot of these creepy videos is baby cams
mm.
pick up invisible things messing with the baby.
You ever seen The Witch?
The one with Anna Taylor-Joy.
Maybe that's her
Was it
name.
the
Because
VV witch with the goat?
yeah, Double V Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about the baby in that movie. Yeah, baby gets
Oh
taken
yeah.
up.
Which VV is 66.
Ah,
It's the 66.
really?
Yeah.
Isn't? Oh, go on.
It's a Hebrew gematria thing. There's a
Oh,
whole, yeah.
okay.
So we're in universe B where the monsters live, and they're trying to make these monsters have like personalities that we can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So the monsters are basically demons,
Yep.
and it's the power of the children's screams that fuels their world, right?
Yeah, it's like
And
it's
so
funny because when you read it literally, you're like, yeah, that's
if
does.
I wrote a synopsis for this movie, it would not sound like a kids movie, right? It would sound like a
Right, right.
like Rob Zombie horror movie or something, but but
Sound
make
like
it,
a odd song.
yeah. Um so you could equate that maybe to adrenochrome, which is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh you know, Aldous Huxley talked about that in way back in The Doors of Perception. So this adrenochrome thing has merit to it. I don't know exactly who or where or where they get it from, but it does seem like it is a traded drug that is coveted by the elite, that is extrapolated by, the blood of tortured people.
And then what are they? That's the adrenochrome. Wasn't that like making its rounds during COVID or something for like take it and you'll feel better? No.
No.
Who?
You
What were they? I'm
mean,
sorry. Who? When? Where? I heard that in the news over the last few years. What was? Weren't they taking it for a vaccine?
no, that
Anybody?
adrenochrome? No.
No. Well, sorry. I'm just totally showing my ignorance here.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead.
We won't linger too much on that. Everybody knows about adrenochrome by now, but yeah, that's the fuel that fuels their whole world. And Sully, the John Goodman character, he is your stereotypical beast,
Yep.
right? He is the hero of the movie, but how much have we been talking about magic and the devil and blah blah blah? Alistair Crowley called himself the Beast.
Mm.
The Beast of Revelation is what they're trying to emulate and become. The Beast 666.
He did have his little demon horns
He
too,
did.
right?
He's the Beast.
He's top beast.
Exactly. And Mike is the eyeball, the one-eyed monster, which we did get into this kind of on Psyop Cinema, but like one-eyed monster can also be a dirty
Pretty
thing.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that's a phallic reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mentioned in Goonies, remember that movie?
Yeah.
So if you watch that movie, look how many times they make phallic jokes or talk about One-Eyed Willie's rich stuff.
Mm.
Not pirate's treasure, not gold or sunken silver. They call it One-Eyed Willie's rich stuff. You know anything about ceremonial magic and Thelema and OTO and Crowley,
Yeah.
it gets gooey.
Shout out. I know there's tons of things that do this, but I thought right away of Twin Peaks season 3 when you said that. Because they do.
Yeah.
Cooper does magic, does sex magic with Diane
Mm-hmm.
to get the other side or the other dimension, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
even remember at that point.
Probably Universe B, what I'm talking about right now, where the monster.
Yeah, it is. It's in they're in the universe split at that
Yeah.
point. Hmm.
So they're I thought it was interesting how the whole world is set up like a company town, like a turn of the century or
Oh,
mid-century company
nice.
town.
Nice.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they all work for the same corporation. It's not
Okay. Yeah, I had kind of for lack of a better word, I kind of had a stoner 101 moment when I was like, if monsters are humans,
like
does that mean it's like Humans Inc. that they work at? Because like, in the world,
yeah.
they're just normal, right? And it's kind of like, anyways, I just that kind of took me out imagining if that was played out in our world, what it would be called. Yeah, it'd be Humans Incorporated.
Yeah. And so they say we scare because we care. And they have to keep the power on in their universe by our emotions. And
Mm.
you've
Dude,
got
that's so sorry, that's just what our modern world is right now, right? You
mhm,
just gotta look at your phone all day and be fueled by your emotions. And
mhm,
you power you going on your phone then charges all these companies,
the
gives them
beast
their
system,
yeah. Ooh.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
Um, my favorite character in this was the slug lady, the
Who
with the
turns out to be the good one in the end, right?
yeah, Roz. I thought she perfectly like encapsulated the whole bureaucrat, like angry old bureaucrat slug woman.
Absolutely.
And so they all work at Monsters Inc., which is a warehouse of portals.
This is going back to Roz. This is one of
Mhm.
those tropes that Pixar did right, but it's gotten lazy. Where both in Zootopia and then in Elemental, they also have the like bureaucratic person who's like slow, boring, doesn't want to be there kind of deal. But so much better in Monsters Inc. But the last two
Yeah.
movies have gotten kind of lazy with that.
We just watched Jupiter Ascending, and there's a whole planet, like it's the bureaucrats planet. It's really funny, like
Mm.
all the paperwork and stuff that she has to go through in
Hey,
universal
random
bureaucracy.
random question. When's the last time you watched Starship Troopers?
Um, Not recently, but I do really like that movie. I think it's goofy and fun. I like Heinlein.
Okay, I've not seen it since I was like a kid, and like I
Uh-huh.
was like recently like, man, I feel like there's something in Starship Troopers that would be fruitful to watch.
Yeah, you should watch it because it's all about you have to join the military to become a galactic citizen.
Hmm.
So they're like, "Do you want citizenship, global citizenship? Join the bug killers or whatever." And
Wait, instead of killing bugs, we'll just eat bugs in our future that we sign up for.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's it's kind of a metaphor for like the military expansion of the US military industrial complex.
Right.
But yeah, Starship Troopers, that's a fun one. So, okay, so the Monsters Inc. is the warehouse of portals that they can destroy if they want to. And this just got me thinking, so it's the portals that we open by doing ceremonial magic, by doing Ouija boards, by doing tarot cards, by going to mediums, by breaking down that membrane between reality and the other dimension that has a lot to do with imagination, like you were talking about. Um, because they can only like they have to clock in and clock out, so they can only go through the portals at certain designated times. So I'm
Mm.
thinking, is this
Oh,
like astrological or is this based on rituals or ceremonies or what? Did that make you think of
well,
that?
either way, we could say astrological in a general sense, and then it's cosmos bound. It still relies on the mechanisms of the cosmos, whether it be certain times or it be certain forces, your keys you're turning at a certain time, so to speak, to get that to open.
Mm-hmm.
Where again, like shout out for Christ, like God is post cosmic, he's beyond the cosmos. So when we pray to God, what part of why our prayer, that's why when, like in our picture, when we pray, we're not stuck in the force bubble
Mm-hmm.
because we pray, we have this freedom where God is beyond the cosmos, where our magician is stuck in the cosmos in his force bubble, where prayer doesn't involve, as you see, being stuck in a force bubble. So just,
Oh, interesting too, because it's not even bound to time, because God isn't bound to time.
exactly. So it's just one of these. What I'm trying to say, like, as people, you're into magic and stuff, just start learning to pray. It's like so much better for you. And
Yeah, it's a lot
it's
easier.
and really like people want to be free. They want to break through the drudgeries of life and the routines and the cycles and looking at the clock, time to go to lunch kind of deal. And yet then we turn right to astrology and magic and relying on and the I Ching and relying on forces of time that like it's just pretty mind-boggling, frankly, in orthodoxy that you can get beyond time.
Hmm.
Because I'm a musician, so I was always into time and the I Ching and like a surfer finding the right waves of time and life to start surfing for, what you want to happen in your life. And just kind of crazy to think that you could be in direct personal contact with he who created time.
Right. And that's
Sorry, I was just like,
prayer is more powerful because you're appealing to, yeah, someone who's outside space and time, and it doesn't even rely on the laws of physics or astrology or conjunctions or vibrations. It's like more than that.
it's love, because it's like God doesn't even need our prayers. Like
Mm.
it, if God needed our prayers, it'd create a whole other issue of like, well, who is this God and why do you pray for him to him and all these things where it's like prayer is a gift that we've been given by God to, I don't know, this will sound cheesy, but like grow in love.
Hmm.
It's not, it's like, I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's like, um, he, I have a note. Yeah, it basically says prayer. I don't know. I just put prayer is a gift from God, which allows us to know that through simple things, we're allowed to draw closer to Him.
Hmm.
And yeah, magic though is like getting the retractable beam force field thing where he just brings in all of the cosmic dust with you, and you don't know what you're getting with all that garbage.
Right. You could be getting ghoulies. Okay, so they think that kids can hurt them, and they think that objects from our world can contaminate them, right? So is
Yeah,
that saying we have more power than we think over this dimension?
right. Oh, nice. Good point.
Um, and then the baby, Boo, she's not old enough to be scared. Like she doesn't know fear yet because
Hmm.
she hasn't experienced any traumas yet. So she just thinks the giant monster is a kitty because he's fuzzy.
Right. See again though, that's interesting point you bring up, which I'm not contesting, but doesn't she have her evil monster, Randall?
Yes, she's scared of Randall because Randall has been experimenting on her.
Oh, right. How has he been experimenting?
He is trying to make a device to extrapolate their screams at a higher rate.
Again, it's like all the technology, just like Ghost Guy in the first movie, where in the first movie, Haunted Mansion, he can't get into the spiritual world because of his technology.
Yeah.
In this movie, Randall, it's like inverted. The spiritual world preys upon the natural world through the technology.
Hmm. So she's not scared of um Sully, but she is scared of Randall. And they're trying to make a point that these demons have a soft side. Like they're not all bad. Not all of them are all bad. They have, a soft side. And
Well,
so,
they're cute, Jamie. That's why. Look how
and
cute they are.
yes, and by interacting with them, we can bring out the good in them, right?
Yeah, my little notes here is like basically fallen man lives according to fear. Because like you're saying, there's no fear in the gospel life.
Hmm.
Like man shouldn't have fear. So basically, fear is our ground upon which this whole thing is based on, which in some level, just to be like Christian about it, it's all in this fallen world where the spirit is basically cut off. And again, to my other chart, you have your body psyche split because we're cut off from the spirit. Because when we're in touch with the spirit, with God, we don't have fear. I mean, of course, Christ, when he was in Gethsemane and he was saying, Lord, let this pass from me. as a human being, obviously, I don't want to be too black and white about this. We do have fear, of course, but let's say fundamentally speaking, like when you've yoked yourself to God and to Christ, there's no fear.
Hmm.
And fear, and when there's no God, there's fear, and when there's fear, there's pride. Because I got to do it, right? If there's no God around, I got to be the one that makes the universe work, or I have to make sure to keep everything in order. I got to make sure all my kids are going to be fed. All these things were basically just pride, fear. This is from my chart. Again, I got this from a patristic source. No God leads to fear, leads to pride, leads to all the passions.
Hmm. And the fear is what connects us to the demonic realm.
Mm-hmm.
And they feed off it. They feed off our grief from Haunted Mansion, and they feed off our
Exactly.
Monsters Inc.
Callback. Yep.
Did you notice they made a mention about Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot are just banished monsters?
Yeah. I thought that's interesting. I gotta take that to heart because I'm in Bigfoot territory up where I live. So
Well, I did go to the Disney Animal Kingdom once, and they have a abominable snowman ride, the Yeti,
uh
and it was scary. I mean, it was literally, it made me scream. It extracted my energy.
okay. That's that's a funny tie-in. My only couple notes from this one. This one I want to bring up. So this I actually got from Disney itself. This was from the Imagineering documentary, and they're talking about fabricating fun and creating the parks. And they literally said, fear minus death equals fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I then was trying to be pithy about it. And so I thought, oh, well, then no fear. If fear minus death equals fun, no fear plus death equals resurrection. but, but uh but forgive me, I was just having fun with that. But anyways, I just thought it was funny that, like, I'm saying I thought it was funny. I think it's interesting the way they use fear and fun to
And
sort of,
death.
yeah.
Yeah, that is weird. What's the Imagineering? I should watch that Imagineering documentary.
Yeah, my only take on it was I watched this before I converted or anything, but I was still interested in um yeah, forgive me, peoples, but like from the sort of quote unquote Jungian point of view, where everything is just the unconscious manifesting itself in reality. I was still kind of half on board with evolution idea of just thinking like, man, to think all this stuff just comes from nothing and human beings just invent symbols, and we built the pyramids and we built these churches, and now suddenly we build a Disneyland, and as I was watching this documentary, I was kind of observing, like, is this how religions are born? Like, you get this guy with an idea, cults, I would say,
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah.
You get a guy with an idea, and then he gets it out there, and it grows and grows. And then what happens when the founder of the cult dies? How do people carry on his legacy? And so this Imagineering documentary, man, I thought it was like,
I
is
mean,
this
it
religion in real time?
happened. Yeah, look at Mormons, and that's not that old. That's a huge
Right.
thing now.
I mean, that's what I'm kind of saying is like, and again, like this is patristically backed, but I think the chill heads in our Orthodox world, the fathers, the saints, I shouldn't call them that, but chill heads, but they say that Christianity isn't even a religion. It's
Mm,
the end of religion. That
right.
religions are built, made by man to get to God, where in Christianity, God came down to man in Revelation. So therefore, I would say something like Disney is a religion in the way if you use it in a very technical way, where it's man creating these systems, theme parks, in this case, true mecha lands, where people are trying to communicate with the spiritual world. In the Disney world, they don't call it spiritual world, they just call it imagination, fantasy, dreams, wishing upon stars, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm. You just made me think of something about the cross and the crossroads. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but because it's pretty deep and it goes back to ancient times. But yeah, so scaring the kids one by one the way they're doing it is not enough. And the boss man that owns Monsters Inc., that crab guy, has gotten Randall, Steve Buscemi, the creepy lizard man, to build a device that will revolutionize the scaring business, the scream extractor, which is a giant long phallic thing that they put on the kid's face.
On their mouth.
Yeah,
Stick it
and
right in their mouth.
suck out their energy. Um, and they're doing this like they've got Boo in the chair and she's like screaming and this thing's in her, the one-eyed monster coming to extract her energy. Like this is straight up Epstein adrenochrome SRA stuff.
Well, it's crazy because like the movie is still hitting home the theme that this is bad and bad people are doing this. But the mere fact that it's like being presented and that people worked on it for so long and spent all this time rendering and creating these images and being immersed in them, it just has to make you wonder what effect it creates, sort of like a pond, immersing yourself in sort of imagery for so long has to have some toll on your being.
Did you notice so they got banished to the Himalayas, which is really important to the esoteric by way of theosophy, and they think that's where the secret chiefs live, right? That are controlling the world from their mountaintop Tibetan.
Oh, really? Who believes this?
It's called theosophy.
Okay, so I know of Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky, but they
Yeah.
believe the Theosophists that their headquarters are in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So they get cosmic transcriptions from the secret chiefs who are sitting up there floating like the super friends, basically. Like, remember South Park? It was like
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah,
Muhammad, all of the super friends.
I do.
So that's what the secret chiefs are in theosophy, and so that's where the monsters get banished to when they have to leave monster world, and they're in our world, they're in the Himalayas. I thought it was interesting that it was Boo that beat Randall in the end and not Sully.
Yeah.
So it was the baby that overcame the evil demon.
Well, again, it's like all this like kind of Christian, not really stuff where you have the divine child, we'll call her,
Uh-huh.
the innocent one who wins. But again, it's not in the way that the innocent one makes the self-sacrifice. It's the innocent one actually uses its mitts to knock out evil, I'm
Yeah,
innocent, strong.
right. And
I
then
was Go ahead, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say they find out in the end that laughter is 10 times more powerful than screams.
More
So all the
profitable.
monsters become like stand-up comedians and trying to make the kids laugh instead of scaring them.
Yeah, I just put monsters are no longer scary and need to be feared, but not because of God. Like we don't, because if we had God, we wouldn't fear monsters
Uh-huh.
because we have God on our side. But here we don't fear monsters because monsters are good.
Right.
Like it's like I don't know how to explain it other than just saying that same thing. Basically, the demons are using a rope-a-dope technique to get you on their side.
Yes. And just like in Haunted Mansion, where they all decided that they could live
Dude,
cohabitate with 100 ghosts in the mansion at the
yes,
end.
sorry. I'm just having a thought right now that came to me about all this. It's because the more easily man couples with demons, the demon is going to appear less and less scary, like a passion, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll just drink a little bit before my test or public speech, or whatever. I'm using a too obscure example, but like saying like the more you do a little bit of something, the more you become desensitized to its powers, you could say. Like our priest gave a homily a while ago, and he's saying that let's just say every day you spend 5 degrees going off kilter, you know,
Mm-hmm.
by I don't know what it'd be 90 days or something later, you'd be 180 degrees the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that little bit of compliance, a little bit of rope a doping with the demons, laughing and being silly, will eventually get you facing a whole opposite direction of what you meant to.
Yeah.
This is again one of these weird moralities of this world. It's like, how does a good monster teach a human child to change? Because Boo's no longer afraid of Randall at the end. So something in the good monster caused her to overcome her fear of evil monsters.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like, what does the monster teach the human that ontologically makes this monster better than other monsters? Is it because the monsters have love? Like, is it the end of the day, love
Well,
really?
yeah, Sully learned to love in this, just like Max Devlin. But I just remember this one sinister thing is like they found out that Randall had been visiting Boo without um being on
After
the
hours.
clock after hours. Yeah. And so what was he doing to her after hours if he wasn't extrapolating her screams? Why? Yeah.
My only my only guess while trying to stay in canon and not go too far,
Yeah.
he's probably picking up that machine to her when
That's
she's
what,
sleeping, ever,
yeah. So we're supposed
probe
to think that
with his
he,
alien probes. He's doing alien probes on her.
yeah, exactly. That's the point I was trying to make. Like the one-eyed monster is prevalent in this thing, and I'm pretty sure that's what it means. So laughter is more powerful than dreams, screams. They become demonic clowns instead.
Oh, nice. Nice. I didn't really think about that. The clown.
Yeah. And you are rooting for this relationship between a grown monster and a toddler. Like you're sad when they're cut off from each other, when you think the portal has closed and he can never see her again. You're like, oh
All
no.
right. It's like this Jungian yin yangian sort of like you need the whole door to open the portal, and it's all about wholeness, cosmic wholeness. Even in this sense, it might not be masculine, feminine, so obviously polar, but even here, you need the whole door in order for the alchemical. Maybe I'm going too far with alchemy, but just trying to say it's all about in the modern era. What people are going to see in movies is the theme of integrating the darks, the wholeness
Mhm.
is always be this thing where like the cosmic yin yang is trying to find its completion, and it's likely going to be some Sophianic Boo, a female character who's going to be the divine wisdom who will unite the worlds.
Do
It's
your
just like,
shadow work.
that's right.
Yeah.
In this movie, you just bring the shadows into your bedroom and have
Yeah.
them give
And
comedy to
play
you.
with them. Yeah, so you're rooting for them to a grown man monster to be friends with a little girl, and continue to visit her in her bedroom at night throughout her life.
Like there's just so many things that like in my larger context of outside of my church, I know this stuff doesn't seem weird at all to people, but I just think that like if I were a priest, or if even just today, if I were to have kids tomorrow, I'm just like, you really gotta scratch your head and wonder what age you want to start showing them these things. If
Hmm.
like, even if not because maybe they'll understand all this esoteric stuff, or even if it does get all implanted in there, but just the mere fact that like, I mean, we have a real tradition of human beings that have martyred themselves for Christ and stuff. And here we are in this other world where it's kind of just like, oh, play with your monster friend and everything will be better in the long run. It's just kind of weird to balance these two worlds of fantasy with our real world of Christian, dare I say it, magic, but a real Christian world of spirituality that's really quite profound and crazy when you think about it, like interceding with the saints and holy relics and all these things. It's like our world's pretty far out already. It's
Oh yeah, it's mystical enough, right?
really,
The
really.
church has all of these aesthetic things and mystical things and deep dives as deep as you want to go, and for every level of IQ, you'll be satisfied. The last point I wanted to make about this was so on PsyOp Cinemas, we were talking about what do you make about how they say laughter is more powerful than screams. And we did talk about the demonic clown, but then he said something that was so poignant and wrapped it up. He was like, the trauma becomes entertainment.
Say a little more on that.
So, like you just said, the Imagineering people say that fear, what was it? No death plus
Yeah, fun. Fear minus death equals fun.
fun. Yes. So here, they're taking the trauma of, like going on a ride or seeing something scary or frightening cartoon or image. That trauma becomes the entertainment
Mm,
that we choose. What do you think of that?
I I think that's I want to chew on that more just so I could find more examples. I don't disagree with any of
He
that at
explained
all.
it way better than I could, so you just
No,
have to.
no, no, no. I hear what you're saying though. I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. It's like, and the way that I thought about it immediately without maybe mapping one to one of what you said was like everything that used to be our environment becomes content in the new environment. So even something like my thoughts become word in a new environment of speech. My speech becomes writing in the new environment of writing. Writing becomes a play in that environment. Play becomes film, et cetera, et cetera. And this way, trauma becomes content. Say that again. Say it again. What you said about the
He just said the trauma becomes the entertainment because
right. So trauma,
the monsters, instead of being scary, now they're being stand-up comedians or trying to make the kids laugh.
well, it's that whole thing of like sublimating, right? To try to like take your things that are trouble you and your fears and your low things and sublimate them into something higher, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Again, it's like I guess just without well the risk of being cheesy and all that, it's kind of like just offer this stuff to God, rather than trying to become your own alchemist and transfigure your trauma into something. Because then you get like Ben in Haunted Mansion movie where he's like, just grieve with me forever, little young bro, and we'll like both be sad, miserable humans together in our trauma. And the way the whole film is even like showing like I'm just noticing maybe it has something to do with like the past few years of the whole virus world, but like the trauma that children have gone through over the last few years of thinking like, wait, you mean even if I stand around grandma, I'm gonna possibly kill her unless I like wear my mask, and just kind of like the way that trauma is becoming this thing that I think we're gonna probably see more and more films, if not already, that have come out where people are like glorifying trauma and sort of being a victim, in a sense, in a way that different than what we're seeing now with like the victimhood of kind of like the Me Too things over the last few years. But like, I guess all I was gonna say is that being a victim basically creates this negative stress response in us because being a victim implies that bad things are always going to be happening to us.
Hmm.
And in a sense that when we flip around to, I don't know, make fun out of it, it on one hand lessens the reality of real trauma. By the other hand, kind of shoot, I'm losing steam on that thought. Rope, it's all the rope a dope, man. It's all rope a dope. Just
Yeah.
when it comes, forgive me losing my tangent there. Just saying like,
Well, we have been going for over 3 hours.
well, that makes
So
sense. Yeah,
I
I'm
think
probably
our
my
brains
limit.
are probably coming to the end of what we can do tonight.
I hear you there. Oh, yeah.
That's all I had for Monsters Inc. And so we did Haunted Mansion, Frog Princess, Devil and Max Devlin, and Monsters Inc. And they all had a lot of the same threads and common themes in them. I think we have pretty much knocked these out of the park. And next
And
time,
then
yeah, we're gonna
we
do
we even got two John Goodman movies
right.
overlapping in too. We did
Yeah.
good.
um, Black Cauldron, Mars Needs Moms,
Yeah,
and
maybe we'll find one more. Oh, what else?
we'll have to
Did you
think
have
of two more, and then we'll have a show.
okay, though maybe. Hey, I'm all for the four, but granted how our time goes, maybe we should do three next time and see.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. For the sake
Well,
of our viewers,
thanks for hanging in with us till the end, and we had a great time, and I hope you did too. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Paul, for coming.
you're welcome. Bye, Jamie.
Bye.